February 21st meeting of the Board of Education is now in session. Please rise for the invocation and remain standing after the Pledge of Allegiance, please. O God, we pray to administer that which is just in all educational policies, being ever mindful of your guidance, stir us to action with love, wisdom, and understanding. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. 1 week ago today, 17 people lost their lives in a shooting at Marjorie Stoneman Douglas High School in Parkland, Florida. Please join me now in a moment of silence for the victims and all those affected by this tragedy. Thank you. Welcome to this meeting of the Board of Education. This meeting is being televised live on AACPS TV and live streamed on the internet. General information and protocols for the meeting are posted on the sign by the doorway as you enter the room, so please make sure you read those if you have not already. Item 2.03 is approval of the minutes.
So moved. Second.
Madam President, point of order.
Okay. Are there any public comments on the minutes?
Madam President, my name is Victoria Calhoun. I rise at this time to make a point of order. Reference in the last board minutes as agenda item 5.03, Strategic Plan 2018-2023, I believe the board did not use proper procedure to conduct its business for this agenda item, and therefore I believe the action is null and void. At the December 6, 2017 meeting, which I attended, the board on agenda item 5.16, Strategic Plan, the record shows the board voted to lie on the table the strategic plan until 7 February 2018. On the 7th of February, the board, according to procedure, should have removed the item from the table where, under Robert's Rules of Order, the motion would have remained unchanged. Instead, the board treated it as if it was a new agenda item. The record in the board discussion clearly showed that the document had been modified. It seems to me several possible violations may have occurred in all of this. But of most concern to me is the fact that the board members' input actually got into the document, but no apparent public input did. Specifically, my argument to this board on 6 December was that this was not a strategic plan and that meaningful public input was not solicited. Subsequently, I've provided significant public input both on the feedback form, which was on the website, and emails, which I sent to every board member here except for the new board member. The input is completely unaccounted for in the public record of this action, nor is it contained in the revised material. Under Robert's Rules of Order, the use of lie on the table itself is considered a violation of fairness in the fact that it's undebatable. In this case, I feel that because the board violated the established procedures for this action, I believe the action under Robert's Rules of Order is null and void. I'll wait any of your questions, but I think it's the parliamentarian.
Thank you, Ms. Calhoun. This is an example why public input is very important. It informs us of areas that we may need to review. We will consult our board counsel on this so that we are clear on this point for going forward, and I will follow up with you after we have consulted with our counsel. So, are there any other public comments or board comments? So, all those in favor of the minutes? Okay. All right. Item 2.04 is establish agenda order, and the agenda stands as written. Item 2.05 is board recognitions, and we have no board recognitions except that I want to welcome Mr. Sidney Butcher, our newest board member. Welcome, and you picked a great night to come out for your first meeting. So. Item 2.06 is school and community highlights. Mr. Reinhardt.
Thank you, Madam President. I had the wonderful opportunity this past weekend to attend the first Tech Challenge at UMBC and see just the incredible robotics teams operating out of South River represent Anne Arundel County at the state championships. It's a wonderful opportunity.
Ms. Korbelak.
I had the chance Friday evening to go to the high school dance festival at Annapolis High School, and although my daughter was no longer dancing there, she's in college now, it was wonderful to be back and see so much talent that we have here in the county.
And I was able to attend our all-county band concert and also cluster concerts for the Meade and the Glen Burnie clusters when all the elementary and middle and high school students play together, and they were all wonderful. We just have amazing talent all throughout this county. And I do want to give a shout out. 26 of our CTE students at our CAT centers finished in the top 3 in Regional Skills USA competition, and will be going to the state. So that is fabulous. So item 2.07 is the CRASC report. Mr. Curran.
Good evening, President Hummer, members of the board, and Dr. Lotto. My name is Connor Curran, and I'm the Secretary of Education of CRASC. We are quickly approaching the student member board of election season. The nomination period is open. We have already hosted information nights. Our campaign clinics focused on campaigning will be held from 6:30 to 8:30 p.m. next Wednesday. We invite all students interested to attend and apply. We also have collaborated with Arundel and Smyrna Park High School signature programs and will host a General Assembly on February 27th, focusing on legislative advocacy and Anne Arundel County's General Development Plan for 2040. I'd be lying if I said that CRASC and the AACPS student body have been fully focused for the last week. Like the rest of the country, we've seen the media coverage of the tragedy at Marjorie Stoneman Douglas High School. To say that we are offering our condolences is simply not enough. I understand that the Office of School Security has worked with schools to conduct armed intruder drills. It's horrible that we must participate in these exercises. But again, I must say thank you to Mr. Doyle Batten, administrators, and faculty members who have collaborated so that we can improve our ability to manage crisis. What you are doing is important and deeply appreciated. Excuse me. From the tragic event in Parkland, Florida, arose many heroes. Many of these survivors have banded together to lead the #NeverAgain movement that focuses on the issues of gun control, school safety, and mental illnesses that plague our society. I'm not going to make any associations regarding an official cross position on these polarizing topics. Instead, I just want to thank our teachers and everyone else for everything they do for keeping us safe. The students that have defied death are using their power for good, are showing the strength and capacity of the student voice. It is important that they, as well as we, keep using our student voice to speak out against violence at our schools. Our own communities have not been immune to the frightening presence of firearms in schools this year. With that, we would be remiss if we did not thank the administrators, school resource officers, and others who handled those incidents. No one was hurt, and the entire community is grateful. Excuse me. I am thankful to attend classes in a school system that take numerous precautions, works with community partners, and strives every day to help ensure our safety and well-being during school hours. CRASC would like to also thank our police and fire departments, as well as school staff and faculty for ensuring our safety. Thank you, Dr. Lotto, for your letter, which articulated school safety as a daily discussion item for your team and working to improve our safety with each school renovation. CRASC supports school safety measures and advocates for safe learning environments for all personnel. The CRASC official platform includes several articles and sections that support the prevention of school violence and support for mental health through policy and funding. Unfortunately, the prevention of mass shootings in school is beyond the scope of our advocacy. We look to the adults and leaders in our community to act with courage and responsibility and to do something bold to make the world safer for me and my generation. Please. For the past 2 years, CRASC has focused on the importance of mental health support from the school system. We continually see insufficient funding and overwhelming volume of students without access to school counselors and school psychologists. We cannot stress enough that the well-being of our students in our county should be priority. both mentally and physically. Our counselors cannot foster close relationships with their overwhelming student caseloads. Not to mention that many students are not even aware of the places they can go to for help. CROSS emphasizes and supports all initiatives that provide mental health services to students. Again, I'd like to reiterate my gratitude towards the school system. I'm very thankful every morning that I get to go to a high school where I know my safety is of paramount importance. Thank you.
Thank you, Connor. Item 2.08 is an action item, reappointment of the superintendent. Mr. Gilliland.
Thank you, Madam President. With great pleasure, I move that the Board of Education reappoint Superintendent Dr. George Arlotto to a second four-year term contingent on the parties reaching agreement on a new contract and approval by the state superintendent as required by law.
Second. Are there any board comments? Ms. Korbelak.
I'd just like to say that I, for one, am delighted that you want to stay another 4 years. Thank you.
And I will echo that. I think I'm looking forward to working with you again in 4 years. We haven't voted yet, but assuming that we are going to vote for that. So, is there any public comment? Okay. Congratulations.
Thank you. Thank you. I will be brief and just say thank you. I've been honored and humbled for the past 4 years to serve as a superintendent, for the past 12 to work in this wonderful county. When I came in 4 years ago, I talked about the people, and it's people that make a difference on behalf of children, and I can say emphatically 4 years later that the people we have are amazing. They are gifted, they care deeply, and so I'm looking forward to another 4 years and hopefully beyond to do the work of this board, to work on behalf of this community, and to work with this AACPS awesome team. So thank you.
Thank you. I will throw in that I think we have the best superintendent in the state. So I'm glad he's coming back.
I'm going to second that. You want to vote?
So. Next will be public comment. Anyone wishing to speak on an item not on today's agenda may offer testimony during this public comment portion of the meeting. Speakers are allocated 3 minutes each and may not allocate their time to others. A tone will sound when time has expired. The board asks that comments remain civil and appropriate for the various audiences that may be watching or viewing this meeting. Student-specific and personnel matters are confidential and cannot be discussed in this forum. If someone is to bring up student-specific or personnel matters, I will ask that you cease speaking. It is not the board's general practice to engage in question-answer session with speakers. For the record, please give your name before speaking. Handouts should be given to the board assistant. Robert Silkworth, Victoria Calhoun, Shannon Fletcher, Dee O'Brien, and Aaron O'Brien.
Good evening. Before I begin, I have to follow Connor again. What a great job. And then Dr. Arlotto, here you get appointed for 4 more years, and I have to follow that. I'll do my best. Good evening, President Hummer, Vice President Gilliland, other distinguished board members. Congratulations, Dr. Arlotto. My name is Robert Silkworth, and I'm here this evening once again representing the High School Concerns Committee. I would also like to extend a very warm welcome to Mr. Sidney Butcher. Mr. Butcher, welcome to Anne Arundel County Board of Ed. We appreciate your service. Thank you so much. Ladies and gentlemen, our February meeting was held on the 14th, Valentine's Day. And we discussed quarterly exams, the alignment of these exams with our curriculum, some behavioral issues in certain schools, and the revised strategic plan, and some concerns that plan might have on the budget process. We also did meet with the ASI Tech Advisory Group on January the 18th, and we had some great discussions again about testing, the testing window, CCR readiness, and of course some additional concerns about substitutes. And we also did talk at that meeting about the strategic plan. This evening, I will talk about one item which I believe does deserve some comment, and that's the issue of collaborative planning. We all agree that it is essential to plan collaboratively in our schools so that we can provide our students with the best possible instruction. Over the past few years, great efforts have been made by admin and staff to promote the collaborative process in all of our schools. Schedules have been created which allow us to maximize the potential to schedule collaborative planning in content areas. But now, I think we need to focus on helping some of our teams plan effectively and efficiently in order to minimize their workload and maximize the effectiveness of the lessons for our students. Some collaborative teams are really working well, but we do believe that there is now a need for help. And I know some of the teachers would welcome the assistance in the collaborative planning process. This is the conversation we intend to have with the ASI TAC Advisory Group so that we can provide insight and recommendations about where we are and where we think we need to go. Now, ladies and gentlemen, I usually end with kudos tonight. We would like to thank each and every one of you up there for your time and your efforts regarding the budget for next year. We all know that this is a very difficult and a time-consuming task. As we all know, a large portion of the budget is always devoted to fund teachers and staff simply because the greatness within the school system lies within the greatness in the people in the system. This county continues to grow, and there will be more students next year than we have ever anticipated. Teachers deserve a step and a fair COLA. Those teachers in our system who were deprived of steps they earned by their service to our students, not because of you or because of me, but because of the funding source. They deserve to be made somewhat more whole for their dedication to our students.
Mr. Silkworth, you can't talk on the budget at this time. That's a budget.
Well, thank you so much. Thank you so much. But they do deserve that.
Thank you, Mr.
I believe they
Silkworth.
do. Once again, ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much.
Hi, good evening. My name is Dawn O'Brien. I have 5 children, 4 who are currently attending schools in Anne Arundel County. Hello again. I've been here several times before to talk about disability issues, but tonight I'm here to talk about Weapons Out Now, which is a group of concerned parents, teachers, students who are advocating for sensible security technologies such as metal detectors that have been proven to keep weapons out of schools. So there was a letter received last week from Dr. Arlotto. Thank you for sending that. It did help shed some light on some of the concerns that we have as parents. And I appreciated how you outlined the lengths to which the school system has gone to put in place precautionary measures and increase awareness of surroundings. However, I was a little bit disappointed that it seemed that not one of the 15 noted measures specifically worked toward keeping weapons out of our schools. So, for example, the letter indicates that buildings are equipped with audio-visual systems that require visitors to alert staff members to their presence when they arrive. So I imagine this looks something like the individual walks up to the door and rings the buzzer or the doorbell. How does this measure specifically prevent an individual who might be hiding a weapon in his or her backpack from accessing the building? It does not. The letter also went on to say that visitors should expect to be asked about the purpose of their visit before being granted entry into the building. I imagine this means something like saying, I'm here to pick up my son from the health room, or I'm here to drop off my daughter's violin, both of which I've done on multiple occasions. But as noted in Dr. Arlotto's letter, visitors and students often hold the door open for other individuals in an effort to be polite, essentially rendering this and the previous measure that I just spoke of useless. How does this measure prevent an individual who may be hiding a weapon in his or her backpack from entering the building? It just doesn't. The letter goes on to say that once in the building, visitors must then provide a government-issued ID card to be scanned through a system that checks the name of a visitor against national and state sex offender databases. So let's just review. Once an individual has first alerted a staff member that they are outside, then they provide an acceptable purpose, I'm here to pick up my kid or drop off the violin. Then they gain entry. They're expected then to direct him or herself to the office and show an ID. How does this measure prevent a person who has a weapon hiding in their backpack from gaining access to the school? It does not. Our children need immediate, and reliable protection against intruders with weapons. We urge the board to appoint a special task force and focus group comprised of citizen stakeholders like parents, teachers, students, and law enforcement in order to discuss sensible security technologies like metal detectors. And I'll wrap it up. In conjunction, we ask the board to initiate an independent study to critically evaluate the security measures that are currently in place. Thank you for your consideration.
Thank you, Ms. O'Brien.
Good evening. My name is Shannon Fletcher. Am I on? Can you hear me? Okay. I too am a mother of 5 children, 4 of whom are school-age children in Anne Arundel County, and I am also here this evening in support of Weapons Out Now, a group of citizens who are advocating for sensible security technologies such as metal detectors to keep weapons out of our schools right now. We understand that there's plenty of opposition to security technology like metal detectors. In fact, in last week's letter sent by Dr. Arlotto, it suggested that our greatest asset to combat weapon violence is sharing information, and stating that for all that technology has to offer, however, our greatest asset is you. It is alert and attentive students, parents, staff members, and others who provide the greatest information we could receive when it comes to issues that may be brewing in our communities or schools. I implore you to continue those conversations at home, in your workplace, and in our schools. We cannot know everything, and we depend on you to partner with us. Put simply, if you see or hear something, say something. But if we have learned anything at all from last week's horrific shooting, it's just how vulnerable our children are, even when information is shared and all the proper authorities are notified. We know from this last shooting that students, staff, parents, and even the FBI were made aware of the danger posed by a member of their very own community. Anne Arundel County simply cannot count on information sharing as being our so-called greatest asset in the effort to keep weapons out of our schools. We cannot count on knowledge without action to be the thing saving our children from gun violence. The measures outlined in the letter sent last week work to do precisely what the letter stated: increase awareness of our surroundings. But how does this measure prevent an individual who may be hiding a weapon from accessing the building? It does not. We strongly urge the board and all of our county representatives to take immediate, concrete, measurable actions by appointing a special task force and focus group to include citizen stakeholders like parents, teachers, students, and law enforcement in order to discuss sensible security technologies like metal detectors, which are proven to keep guns out of buildings. In conjunction, we ask the board to initiate an independent study to critically evaluate the security measures currently in place in Anne Arundel County schools. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Fletcher.
Good evening. My name is Aaron O'Brien. I too have 5 children, 4 who are currently in Anne Arundel County schools, and I'm here this evening to support the Weapons Out Now, a group of citizens who are advocating for sensible security technologies such as metal detectors. We agree there are more questions than there are answers, but one thing we know for sure is that we need to do more, a lot more, to keep weapons out of our schools and to keep our students, our teachers, and our staff safe. We know from other school shootings that school resource officers play important roles in our school environment, but are not adequate in keeping weapons out of our school based on the sheer number of individuals entering the school building on a given day. We acknowledge and thank law enforcement officers for the instances where they have prevented certain issues at schools. It's difficult, however, to speak of those instances since the recent letter sent by Dr. Arlotto did not clarify whether or not these issues were weapon related. In any event, school resource officers may indeed allow the county to access law enforcement resources far more quickly than would otherwise be the case. But our goal is to prevent instances where quick resources in a crisis situation would be needed in the first place. Based on other school shootings, we also know that having staff collaborate with police on a variety of professional development and training exercises that both reinforce and bring about improvements to our safety procedures is helpful, but grossly inadequate if the goal is to keep weapons out of our schools. These trainings typically focus on how to handle an active shooter situation rather than focusing on how to keep individuals with hidden weapons from entering the building in the first place. We appreciate that the county is taking part in discussions with school systems around the nation regarding the prevention of incidences of school violence and are also in regular contact with the Maryland Center for School Safety. We believe in research and inquiry. But we are coming here tonight proactively. Each of us knows that if the horror that occurred in Florida last week had happened here in this county, that tonight's conversation would be very, very different. Let's not wait for a tragedy to take meaningful action. We urge the board to appoint a special task force and focus groups to include citizen stakeholders in order to discuss sensible security technologies such as metal detectors, which are proven to keep guns out of buildings. In conjunction, we ask the board to initiate an independent study to critically evaluate the security measures currently in place. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. O'Brien. Okay. You not okay. Next, we have Scout Earl Smith, Pilot Earl Smith, John Earl, Randy Williams, and James Kitchen.
Hi, I'm Scouty Earl Smith, and I'm 6 years old, and I really don't want you guys to put up. If they put up the cell phone tower, it will be very, very bad. If they do put it up, all the animals and Jack Creek will be ruined, and all the animals that live in Jack Creek will too. Snakes, frogs, rabbits, and that's it.
Thank you, Scout. Your hat is awesome.
Sit here, you want to stand up?
I'll sit here.
Okay.
My name is Pilot Earl Smith, and I live in Shadyside, right next to the Shadyside Elementary School. I really don't want you to put a cell tower at the school. I love playing outside and finding frogs and turtles. Your cell tower will be right in the middle of the wetlands that these animals live in. Please don't destroy their natural habitat. I also don't want to live next to a cell tower. I really hope you take this seriously. This is my second time asking you to help me and my family. I am here to speak for myself and the animals that need protecting. Radiating children and destroying wetlands is not a good idea. Thank you.
Thank you, Pilot.
Good evening. My name is John Earl. I live in Shadyside, Maryland. Welcome, Sydney. Nice to see you. All right. As we all have heard and we all understand, school should be a safe place. School should be the safest possible place, as it's where kids spend most of their time during the week. Schools should be safer than the homes the children are coming from. We're talking about the most vulnerable citizens in our society, and you, as the board, are responsible for their well-being. and their safety. I don't think you buy plastic cups for the cafeteria that aren't BPA free. I don't think you allow teachers to smoke on school grounds. I think you've taken all the dangerous equipment off the playgrounds. And if mold is found in the school's air conditioning system, you remediate it immediately. Did you know it took 40 years for scientists to make the link between BPA and health hazards to humans, and that they're especially dangerous to children? Cell tower radiation is the next thing. Studies haven't even begun to look at the long-term effects to children, to the exposures at the levels they're experiencing today. These are levels that no child in the history of human history has ever been exposed to. It's only been 11 years since the smartphone was invented. So this is new territory, and this is something that, just like BPA is in plastics, this is something that soon industry is going to jump on board and say, these are BPA-free bottles. You can feel safe drinking from these. This is a safe cell phone. It's going to happen. And these are the early days. Sorry, I'm getting... As public servants, I really believe that you should be holding the public interest and safety as priority number one. And Vice President Terry Gillian, I was shocked to see that you actually received $500 from Milestone last year as a political contribution, your largest single political contribution that you've ever received. How can we trust the board to continue building cell towers on school property when members like you, Mr. Gillian, are accepting money from that industry? This whole thing has been a failed exercise in transparency and process every step of the way. And Milestone is continuing today by trying to take shortcuts through planning and zoning.
Thank you, Mr. Earl.
Maybe Mr. Gillian can explain his reason for accepting that.
Okay. Thank you. Mr. Kitchen.
Good evening, members of the board. My name is Randy Williams. Today I have the burden of truth. Cell towers belong at funeral homes, not at schools, period. There is no evidence that cell towers are safe for school children. No evidence. Today I present evidence that you have seen in the past and hopefully read, and I gave some more copies to your secretary, that shows the evidence that cell towers are dangerous. And let me just review some of the evidence for you. The International Firefighters Association takes on the position that they do not let cell towers at fire stations. They don't believe it's going to be safe until it's proven safe. So why are we letting the children be exposed? Why is it that you don't agree with the International Firefighters Association? Dr. Martha Herbert, she's an assistant professor at the Harvard School of Medicine, wrote recently, a few years ago, Wi-Fi and cell towers exert a disorganizing effect on the ability to learn and remember. Can also be destabilizing to the immune and the metabolic functions. When you destabilize the immune system, you can cause cancer. This will make it harder to learn, particularly for those who are already struggling in school and having problems in the first place. She cited over 550 studies when she wrote these conclusions. So, hey kids, you can go outside and enjoy your electromagnetic frequency field day every day, not just at the end of the year. Let's not forget the dangers to the teachers and to the unborn children. And I presented a study recently that talked about the increasing rates of electromagnetic frequency radiation that are measured on a pregnant woman were directly correlated to the increasing rates of miscarriage. That is very scary to the teachers of Anne Arundel County. To talk about equality in finance, there is no equitable amount of money that can be collected at the expense of children's health and the environment and the potential loss of life in the future. So the school system has a responsibility of prevention by reducing the environmental, the chemical, and the invisible effects of radiation and the health effects that they incur. So,
Thank you, Ms. Williams.
yeah. So thank you, and please stop the towers at schools.
Okay. Mr. Grannon. Just a minute, Mr. Kitchen. Mr. Grannon.
Yeah, with regard to your last comment about stopping towers at schools going forward, I think that's a valid and helpful comment to make. I guess I just want to make it abundantly clear that the board has already voted on this matter. I'm sympathetic to your cause. I voted with you. I lost. The board has told you expressly that there's no further opportunity for the board, at least, to address this particular tower. And, you know, I understand wanting to be heard, but it doesn't make any sense to petition a body for redress that's told you it cannot give you the redress you want. As to future cell towers, that makes sense. You all should file a lawsuit. Take it to a body that can actually give you the redress that you want. This one cannot.
So I just wanted to make one more comment that the lease agreement has not been signed, as I've been told that the permits all have to be registered with the county and approved before you would sign the land, the lease, ground lease. So I think there is something that you can still do to stop this tower. Thank you.
Mr. Kitchen. Mr. Kitchen.
Hi, my name is James Kitchen. I am also here to address in regards to cell tower processes in general. And I'm sympathetic and understand your point that there is a process. The board does have regulations. Things happen in this case. You guys have voted, and in my opinion, you voted poorly, and I appreciate that you voted in the interest of the people of Shadyside. Milestone does have a history of showing a lack of respect for community engagement and for having untransparent processes. And I think that's happened here. I think that's abundantly clear that that's happened here as well. And I think if you look at your own regulations, that like it makes sense like why that happens. If you look at it's regulation FBRA C4D is the actual section, but the vendor has to go hold a community meeting. No one from the board is required to be there. They are told ahead of time that the date and location, but no one has to be there. And then it's actually the vendor that gets to come back and report to the board how that community meeting went and if whether or not any changes need to be made based on the voice of the community. That seems bizarre, that the person financially benefiting from the project and holding the public meeting is the one that then is responsible for summarizing that public meeting and reporting back to the board. Again, that's per your language. So I guess I would say, and I guess my request would be, Mrs. Sasso, you are the chair, I believe, of the policy committee. I would request that you guys, I think there is still ways you could pass a resolution to let your voice be known, and that you could say this process has been so corrupted that you want planning and zoning not to issue like a single variance, a single modification. If there's anything wrong with that permitting process, that you would like them to kill it at that stage. I think you could do that and make that publicly known, and it would help a lot. And again, Mrs. Sasso, I would really like for you to bring this as an agenda meeting this spring with the policy committee so that things can be looked at and that these policies that are clearly not transparent enough become more so moving forward. Thank you.
Lisa Taylor Soriero, Patricia Mathis, Dennis Crane, and Dana Schalheim. Lisa Taylor Soriero. Ms. Soriero.
Hi, I'm Patricia Mathis, and I live in Annapolis. I'm a retired teacher. I'm here again to speak against the building of the cell tower at Shady Side Elementary School on all school grounds. While many experts with knowledge of the effects of the EMFs and radio frequency radiation on animals and humans recommend that cell towers should be placed well away from where humans are frequenting or living, you're choosing to allow a cell tower very close to a children's playground and classrooms and family homes. Why would the Anne Arundel County School Administration spend so much time and money making sure that the school playgrounds are absolutely safe and that no child could ever experience an injury on one of them? And then you agree with Milestone to place a cell tower which is constantly emitting harmful radiation so close to that playground. Two organizations, the American Academy of Pediatrics and the Maryland State Children's Environmental Health and Protection Advisory Council, have both issued warnings that Wi-Fi should be reduced in schools because of the possible harmful effects to students and staff. So why would the board agree with Milestone to add more radiation to the children's environment by putting up a cell tower on their school grounds? Just recently, I was shocked, too, to see a report that the vice president of this board took $500 from Milestone while the citizens were testifying and bringing evidence against the Shadyside cell tower. I think the school board is supposed to listen to the citizens of the county and not be influenced by a big corporation. In my opinion, this is a conflict of interest. Milestone is looking out for itself and doing whatever it can to make more money. We need the school board to listen to and to look out for the interest and safety of the ordinary citizens. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Mathis.
Good evening, Dr. Arlotto and members of the board. My name is Lisa Taylor Serrero from Shadyside, Maryland. As you know, I'm adamantly opposed to the building of cell towers on school grounds. I'm disgusted by the fact that you've ignored advice from the American Academy of Pediatrics and hundreds of credible doctors and scientists, and you've chosen to focus only on sources that suit the agenda. I'm also concerned by the fact that you've ignored the majority of our community, and you've chosen to listen to the minority because it also suits the agenda. I'm concerned and disgusted that you have signed this lease agreement in the first place when there is a federal law that states it cannot be fought based on health concerns. And on top of that, you've released Milestone from liability if our kids get sick from this and the indemnification clause in the lease. Do you know why they wanted that added? Because insurance companies won't protect against this type of radiation. Did nobody read this lease agreement before passing this on through? I'm concerned and disgusted when I see how Milestone has been bought and paid for by my elected officials. More than that, I'm outraged that our own Vice President of the Board of Education, months before even filing to run, would take Milestone money, his largest campaign contribution to date. I'm calling the ethics of this into question. Dr. Arlotto, you have told our community that it's up to the county permitting and out of your hands, but this is not true. It is written in your lease agreement that the board has final say. Members of the board, you could put an end to this today. It is within your power and within your right, but you must act. Please follow in the footsteps of Prince George's County and stop this bad deal with Milestone and put the health and safety of our kids first. Please move to bring this issue back up for a vote. Put an end to these towers. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Serrero.
Good evening. I'm Dennis Crane. My wife Donna and I are new residents in Shadyside about a year. We moved here from Baltimore, and I'd like to make a few comments specifically with respect to the environmental impact. I think that probably is minimized relative to the impact that we've heard about here with respect to children and teachers and pregnant teachers and so forth. But I'll put them on the record as well. You've heard them before. I respect Member Korbelek's comment about taking issues like this to a source or a venue where they could in fact be resolved. I think from what I'm hearing here, and I'm newcomer to this, that perhaps you still do have some options. So I'm going to consider presenting some of these facts along with the rest of the folks so that you will in fact take some of those options to heart. I advise this in the context of some words of wisdom from my father, who was a man of very few words. He said, look, you kids have the right to do anything you want, make any choices you want, take money from anyone you want. However, when you do those things, you will have to live with the consequences of those choices that you've made. And you won't get to determine most of those consequences. So I advise some thought about that, given, I confess, spotty information. We're all dealing with spotty information. I also would like to advise that on this environmental aspect, that in particular, putting cell towers in areas of wetlands and areas where birds and migratory birds travel is advised against by the Department of Interior, by the Fish and Wildlife, U.S. Fish and Wildlife, and so forth. I would ask you to take that into account, because there's no question that this location that you've chosen, that has been nominated, is right smack dam in the middle of that kind of thing. I can tell you that this evening before we came here, there were 30 migratory tundra swans in Jack Creek, which is less than a mile from the location of this proposed cell tower. So thank you for your time, thank you for your service, and please consider fully and thoroughly some options that you may not have felt you need to in light of questions of ethics or in light of questions of procedure, and perhaps we can go further and faster in a direction that will be good for the children and for the community. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Crane.
Good evening. I'm Dana Schalheim. I think you all know me. You remember me from last fall, and we've talked on several occasions about other things. I just wanted to briefly voice my support against a cell phone tower anywhere near school grounds. I'm talking as a parent, and if it was near Folger or Mackenzie Elementary, I would be just as vocal for just as long and be just as persistent as all the wonderful people in this room have been. Their advocacy on this issue is inspirational. I'm also talking as a cancer survivor myself. I don't know if any of you know that. No, it was not brain cancer. No, it wasn't caused by radiation. But not knowing all of the science, because there isn't enough data, isn't that enough? Shouldn't that be enough not to pursue this? I think it's enough. And I encourage you, nothing is final until that construction starts. I do believe you have some options, and I really suggest that you take them, and I'll be watching. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Schalheim. Judy Van Horn, Chestine McCormick, and Rob Emenecker.
Good evening. My name is Judy Van Horn, and I stand before you, or sit before you this evening, as a proud mom of 2 boys. My husband and I are very involved parents. Tonight I'm going to share the story of my 13-year-old, who is currently an 8th grade STEM student at Lindale Middle School. When our son expressed an interest in the STEM program back in 5th grade, we did our research and felt that STEM would be a good fit for him for many reasons, but especially because there were supposedly strict criteria in place for students' grade and behavior expectations. We immediately began to regret our decision when in 6th grade, a fellow STEM student began to bully our son relentlessly. By the same child, our son experienced multiple physical, verbal, and property assaults. Do you know that the solution that Lindale offered was to force a friendship between my son and his bully? To me, that is the equivalent of asking an abused spouse to remain in an abusive relationship. For the first time in his life, my son began to express that he hated school. In 7th grade, there were similar incidents, but perhaps the most repulsive was the vandalization of one of my son's uniform shirts. Imagine a 12-year-old boy having to call home because 2 fellow students drew, and I'll just say male genitalia, on his uniform shirt. This is the shirt, that is the drawing. He hasn't worn a white shirt since. My smart, kind, caring kid also hated 7th grade. This year seemed better until recently when my son, who had finished his classwork early, put his head down in math class. A classmate got up out of his seat, made his way to my son, picked up my son's lunchbox, and slammed it into my son's head completely unprovoked. No one intervened. My son had his head down. I immediately completed an online bully form, and I am still waiting to hear from someone. Guess what? My boy hates 8th grade too. Did you know that this year one of my son's teachers at Lindale was physically assaulted by a student? I invite you to pop in during class transitions. The language in the hallways, and often in the classrooms, is the most vulgar you'll likely ever hear in your life. This goes on no matter who is present. I recently came to school to pick up my son from the health room. I was standing outside of the school attempting to make a call before entering the building. I began hearing vulgar language and realized quickly it was being yelled from a window and was directed at me. When I got inside, I reported the incident to the office staff because I was concerned that the students must have been left unsupervised for such a thing to occur. Do you want to know what I was told? I was told, oh, they are with a teacher. They just can't be controlled. I invite you to pop into the classrooms at Lindale and see for yourself the blatant disrespect. The problem kids know they won't face any consequences. They're ruling the school, and nobody is doing anything to stop it. And in closing, I'm wondering if maybe you can help me answer a question our son asks us repeatedly. How am I supposed to learn when everyone is out of control? I don't have an answer. What do you suggest I tell him?
Ms. McCormick.
All right. My twins are now in North County. I'm here on behalf representing the parents of Lindale Middle School. My twins entered Lindale in 2014. They were the largest 6th grade class to enter that school. On October 13th of 2014, my twins' lives changed forever. My daughter went down an overcrowded stairwell while her twin brother helplessly watched below. My daughter has a permanent mild traumatic brain injury. Sorry, I didn't anticipate this. She has a permanent brain injury. My son was assaulted 2 times in 2014, 2 times in 2015, 2 times in 2016. My daughter was assaulted after returning to school, after being out of school for an entire year, twice in 2015, 5 times in 2016. No repercussions for any of the offenders. They were all handled by Anne Arundel County Police. I am requesting an audit investigation of Lindale Middle School for all referrals going back to 2015 to compare them to student files. I am requesting a policy change for the online bullying reports to have a parent response within 24 hours
of that online bullying, when that online bullying report hits the Board of Education, I am requesting the board, you guys, to have a policy that a parent is followed up on that, and they are continuously followed up on that online bullying report, because no one is being followed up on those. Like, no one is following up on them, period. I am also requesting that all schools follow the student code of conduct and not be made to make their own rules for punishment. All schools in Anne Arundel County are supposed to technically follow the student code of conduct. I am learning that the schools are allowed to make their own rules for punishment and play judge and jury. The school system, principals, they should not be permitted to have that authority. The Board of Ed requires our children to abide by the student code of conduct. We as parents demand the Board of Ed to ensure the schools are abiding by the same standards. And we're also, as the parents, requesting all student records carry over, especially discipline records from each school, from elementary, middle to high school. And I'm also requesting video cameras in all classrooms.
Good evening, Dr. Arlotta, President Hummer, Vice President Gilland, and board members. Thank you for this opportunity. My name is Rob Emenecker. I live in Linthicum. For those of you that know me, you know that both myself and I work in higher education. The value of a good education is not lost on either of us. My son is currently a 6th grader at Lindale Middle School. I'm here tonight because I'm deeply concerned about my son and all the other children that go to Lindale each day to learn. I wanted to share with you a brief exchange I had with my son last Wednesday morning during breakfast. I asked him, "How are things going at school?" He looked at me with a bit of a frown and just gave me a thumbs down without saying anything. I asked him, "What does the thumb down indicate?" Acting pretty flip about it, he is 11 years old. He responded with, "Oh, you know, the usual day-to-day stuff there." I pressed him about this. I said, "Help me out, because I'm not there during the day. What is this usual stuff?" He grew a bit exasperated and groaned. "Let's see. Every day there are fights, kids using bad language, really bad language, with everyone, even teachers, and kids disrupting classes all day." And this was the part that I loved, and I'm not trying to be glib. And then he said, "It is a crappy place to learn that just plain sucks." What I found most telling was that he was not complaining about a teacher. He was not complaining about being bullied personally. He was not even complaining about other kids teasing him. But what he said spoke volumes to the atmosphere at Lindale Middle School and going there every day and attempting to learn. In all my years and jobs that I've had, I have never worked in a disruptive, antagonistic work environment as I hear Lindale Middle School described. Not just to me by my son, but by other children and other parents. Unless putting food on the table was at stake, I wouldn't tolerate it. I am not going to tolerate it for my child. My wife and I should not ever be getting calls from Lindale's health room and asked, and I quote, "He is curled up tight in a fetal position. How do you want to handle this?" There are many disruptive children at Lindale, and I would guess many of them are regular repeat offenders. There are also students who bully, intimidate, and physically harm other students. These are not a string of one-off individual incidents, and they must not be tolerated or treated as such. This is a systemic, school-wide issue. For the 2016-2017 school year, there were 336 suspensions and expulsions at Lindale. That is 32% of the enrollments at that school. A third of the enrollments. Lindale Lindale Middle School cannot and should not be a glorified daycare for children with habitual behavior issues, but that seems to be the reality. And the ones who suffer are my son and the other children that go there to learn. The situation must be corrected. I need accountability. I need greater transparency from the school, both good and bad. I need far less tolerance of unacceptable behavior. I need effective leadership. Our children must have a safe, healthy learning environment at Lindale Middle School, and I am challenging you, the board. No, I'm sorry. I expect you to take action and correct this situation.
Thank you, Mr. Emmett.
Would you three do me a favor and step out and have a chat with Ms. Jackson, our Deputy Superintendent, get some more information from the three of you, please? The three of you, and she's going to walk out with you.
Yes,
thank you.
Thank you. Next, Josh Mazer, Raymond Holden, Claire Miller, Corinne Frank, and Jennifer Sowers. Yes, go ahead.
Good evening, my friends. Thank you for the wonderful education that my children, all three of them, have enjoyed in Anne Arundel County. Each and every one of you do a great job, and I appreciate it. Tonight we've heard about some risk to our kids. We've heard about guns. We've heard about bullying. We've heard about cell phone towers. I have another issue that I want to share with everyone. It's come to my attention that the Department of Health of the state of Maryland has issued an order to every superintendent in the county, in the entire state. Every superintendent in the state has been instructed to data mine their schools and provide information to move the sale of HPV vaccination in our schools. Now, I personally don't care if people get an HPV shot or don't. Their business is not mine. I want my kids, when they're sitting at school, to be safe. I don't want them to be data mined, and I don't want information about my kids to be sold to pharmaceutical companies as prospects for marketing. This is the letter on the Department of Health letterhead, which I sent to every board member, every member of the State House, every member of the Senate, every school board in the state, and every PTA in the state. This letter specifically counts up the number of kids by gender and sex in Montgomery County, and it exhorts them to go out and get their HPV shot. The problem with this letter is that it's not about avoiding STDs. If we want to have a conversation about avoiding HPV, we want to talk about avoid risky behavior. We want to talk about don't smoke. We want to talk about the known proven strategies. The fact of the matter is, this letter that was sent to every superintendent in the state is not about preventing STDs in the schools or HPVs. This is a naked, unabashed, unvarnished sales pitch to drive our kids to buy a pharma-funded product in our schools. My question for the school board, my request of the school board is that you immediately contact the governor's office and ask, why is there a stealth marketing program initiated by the Department of Health to sell our kids pharmaceutical products in our schools? I don't want that to happen in our schools. I want my kid to be safe from a sales pitch when they're in school. Because if we allow pharma's companies to capture the Department of Health, what's going to come next? Are we going to be selling on Burger King over McDonald's or Fords over Chevrolets? This effort on the part of the Department of Health is a shameful, shameful thing. Our kids are not fodder to be sold down the river to Big Pharma in exchange for 317 federal vaccine grants. I would really appreciate it if this school board would stand up to the interests that want to sell medical products to my kids without my consent and knowledge. Pardon me, my last point. If this was publicly discussed before it happened, I wouldn't be standing here. This was deliberately done behind the backs of every parent who has a kid in our school classrooms. Thank you.
My name is Claire Miller. I live in Annapolis, and I wanted to talk tonight about transparency and decisions being made by this board. I have sat here tonight and listened to a number of instances where it seems as though parents are not really being informed of what's happening and what risks their children are facing when they're in school. And we started tonight with a prayer. We started with a prayer to be thinking about the children in Parkland, and also a prayer about the work that you all do to keep kids safe. And there's lots of risks that kids face. They really shouldn't face them in school. And I'm here to ask how many parents were really aware that you were signing an agreement with Milestone to put cell phone towers near and on school property, and how many parents are really fully aware of the risks that their children are going to face with that. And as board members, I know you've already made your decision in this one school at Shadyside, but I understand that there's up to 40 towers that can be placed in Anne Arundel County. So will you stand with the parents in the rest of those communities and engage parents in a transparent dialogue about the pros and cons of this decision? Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Miller.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Jennifer Sowers, and my daughter attends Chesapeake High School. My son attends Bodkin Elementary. I am here today to express my concerns for the safety of my child and others at our schools. For the past 4 years, my daughter has been sexually harassed, tormented, mentally abused at school. When it started, I had her tell the administration and talk to the school counselor every time. Gradually, she started telling me, "Mom, they're not going to do anything. I've done it too many times. They're not helping me." When we became aware of the online bullying report, I submitted it. Nothing was done to stop it. Gradually, it escalated. The boy would follow her, calling her a name that I can't say because we have children here, that insinuated she was promiscuous, telling her daily that she was worthless and should kill herself. He even threatened her that if she did not apologize for being this way, that he would make sure that she had no friends at the school. She apologized, and it broke my heart. I finally went to the boys' house because I could not get anybody to help me as far as the principal and the assistant superintendent. I emailed everyone. I included Dr. Alato. I included Delegate Kipke. I felt very alone, and no one was helping us. Sorry. I finally went to the boys' house, and the parent informed me that at no point over the years had they been informed of any issues. At first I thought, that can't be true. Then I read that the state of Maryland in 2017 only contacted parents involved in instances like this 51% of the time, instead of the mandated state percentage of 100% immediately upon it being reported. That should have been immediate for us as well. Last February, with no end in sight, my sweet girl attempted suicide because she could not take it anymore. My girl is not the same girl she was in elementary school. She wears sweats now to cover herself and is on medication for depression. I now keep all of our medication in a lockbox. I escalated the situation as high as I could, and now there are more victims by the exact same bully. My family moved to Pasadena 6 years ago, and the decision was made based on the schools in the community. Since then, the school ratings have plummeted, so much that as a realtor, buyers don't want to move to our area any longer. They are asking for Broadneck and Severna Park, not Chesapeake schools anymore. Not only does this scar our children and change them going forward, it affects our property values as well. In closing, we have provided each of you with a packet that includes areas of concern, immediate action items that include an independent audit of Title IX adherence, bullying and intimidation reporting and follow-up practices to be audited, climate survey reporting, and subsequent equitable disciplinary actions to be audited. You also have testimonials from citizens across the county. I want to see corrective actions, accountability, transparency, communication, and enforcement of the policies and regulations immediately at all of our schools to ensure the physical and mental well-being of all students and staff. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Ms. Sauer.
Good evening. My name is Corinne Frank, and I'm the PTA president of Bodkin Elementary School. I also wanted to come here tonight to discuss the bullying. Personally, I have found Bodkin to be a wonderful school, and I have nothing but praise for all of his teachers and administrators. But someday, my son Cullen and my daughter Colette will move on from Bodkin, and they will be attending these same schools where these children are bullied so tragically. I do not want to face what many of these parents here tonight have faced. I know that bullying happens at every age, but I also know that it is so much more prevalent as they grow older. I know many of our teachers. They are not working in our schools just for a paycheck. I know that they too are concerned for our children and want to do anything to keep our kids safe. Some of these parents tonight may seem angry and upset, but many of them are stemming from feelings of anger and frustration and feelings of helplessness, and they are all afraid for their children. Tonight, I also want to say that I'm not here to just complain about a problem that just seems to affect every school. I would like to offer some solutions. I want to bring this issue to your attention, and I want to tell you that this problem is getting worse. I was bullied in Chesapeake High School myself, and I can see it escalating. I want to encourage you to find new ways to support our schools. Our teachers are trying their best, but clearly there needs to be some more help. The suggestions that I have stem with mental health. Mental health is a serious, serious issue in our county. We're tackling it at all levels, and I really want to see it tackled more in a school setting. Happy kids do not delight in tormenting other children. Some of the mental health suggestions that I have would be a teen screen or tween screen screening process. This would be a process through the health room. We would give a standard questionnaire given by the health room and or guidance counselors. It would just be an optional screening, just like your vision or hearing screenings, and School Health Services already screens for vision and hearing. Many states have mandated these additional screenings. If the child screens positive for mental health issues, their parents are simply notified and resources are given. It is a very cost-effective preventative measure. Identifying at-risk students is a very, very serious concern that we have, and another way to do that would be to use the health room to list students with ongoing health problems or disabilities and cross-reference those students with the school lunch programs. This will give you a manageable list of students that are more likely to be at risk. We are also requesting an SRO for CBMS. One of the problems that we notice is that every time an issue happens in CBMS, the SRO from Chesapeake has to come down and to attend it, which leaves him spread very thin. If there happens to be an issue at Bodkin, that same SRO would have to go to Bodkin. We love our SRO. We want more SROs. They are fantastic. They are dedicated individuals, and we would really love to see these male role models in these schools, giving these students somebody that they can look up to. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Frank.
Ms. Sowers, before you leave, and I know you're speaking on behalf of so many, thank you for being here. Would you take a minute and meet with Dr. Kubik? Thank you.
Yeah, you're fine. You can do it. You're fine.
My name is Raymond Holden, and I attend Lindale. Since my start at Lindale in
September of 2017. I have multiple issues of bullies. I've been stabbed with pencils, kicked repeatedly by class members while I am trying to learn, pushed down halls, pushed down the steps, repeated name calling directed towards me. For example, Mr. Lonely, that they sing to me on the bus, fat and a snitch, to name a few. There was bully reports filled out, and not one time has anyone talked to me about it. There are also kids that disrupt my class, getting into adult spaces, using foul language, slamming things, so much that I have had adults flat out refuse to teach my classes. I deserve to be able to learn without being bullied or disrupted. Bullying makes me feel sad and angry and singled out by what makes me different and unique. It stresses me out to where I don't like riding the bus anymore or even going to school. I would like to know why they are not being held accountable for their actions. I am concerned for my well-being and safety, and I don't think school should be making anyone feel that way. I think bullying should end.
Raymond, you did great, pal. You did great. Would you be willing to host me at your school and we could spend some time together? Would you be willing to do that? Okay, perfect.
Robert Patterson and Ariana Patterson.
Good evening, board. My name is Ariana Patterson. This is my first time ever public speaking, so forgive me. I have 3 children. My oldest is Robert. He's 13, and he attends Chesapeake Bay Middle School. He is the best student I think I could ever imagine, and the best son. Let me just say that. And I'm here because I'm very concerned for his and my younger son's safety. The other night, we were having a conversation, and we were kind of going around and talking about all the current events, and he said to me, you know, I think I'm okay, Mom, because I think most people like me, and I could find ways out of most of my classrooms, and if not, there's great places to hide. And I really wanted to say to him that he didn't ever have to worry about this, because every parent wants to say that, but I couldn't say it because it's not true. The safety in our schools is really unacceptable. I'm in support of the Weapons Out Now program initiative. I really hope that you guys listen to the suggestions that they made earlier for that. I also considered possibly homeschooling our kids, which I would enjoy. I love being around my children, but I don't know if the feeling is mutual. Especially, it would be like a punishment for Robert. He really loves school. And so I tried to look into what I could do to help. And I came across this group of concerned parents in our district. And it was kind of like opening Pandora's box. That is Chesapeake High School. And the issues that are going on there now. And that's where he's headed next year. I feel like what we could do is possibly get more security officers. There's about 3,000 kids between the 2 schools. They're on the same property almost. And they share one right now, and that's just not enough. They need more. Also, there's a regional program in our schools. In the middle school, it's segregated, and in the high school, it's integrated. I feel like that needs to be addressed because they're having some issues of their own, not that I'm altogether familiar with. There's a perfect storm brewing in Chesapeake District, and immediate measures need to be taken. I don't want us to be standing here saying what could we have done or what should we have done. And also, just to let you know, the anti-bullying link on the website results in an error code. You can't access it. Thank you. The anti-bullying link on the website, it's an error code. When you click on it, you can't get to the page. I don't know if that was a temporary issue, but I tried. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Patterson.
Hello, my name is Robert Patterson. I attend Chesapeake Bay Middle School. As my mom said, I feel like the climate in my school is not as good as it was, and even to say it was bad. I see people through the hallways saying such mean things to other people, and I've told my guidance counselors and I've told my administrators, but I've seen nothing happen, and it continues to go on. People in my classes, they're constantly disrupting other people and the teacher to the point where they don't want to teach the class anymore either, and they let them control, and they just cause chaos for everybody. When I was in 6th grade, I had somebody tell me that they brought a knife to school, and I told the guidance counselor of what happened, and he was back at school the next day. I don't really feel like there was any measures taken to keep him out of school. I feel like students are in danger at the school because many people that have mental problems or they just feel like there's no place to go, and I don't blame them because the school has some very, very dangerous things. And I feel like the innocent kids there can't learn right and they can't have a full experience of a middle school. Our resource officer is shared with the high school. I haven't seen him since 6th grade ever come down to the school. So I don't know if he's going to or if the high school is a bigger issue. But I feel like the school could be a lot safer and that we could do a lot more to protect the children that love to learn. Yep, that's it.
That is the last of the comment cards I have. Is there any other public comment at this time? You can come up.
Good evening, Dr. Arlotto, President Hummer, and Board. My name is Janet Norman. For our new members, I'm an Annapolis High parent, Maryland PTA Lifetime Achievement member, robotics founder, education advocate, and supporter of my Annapolis High School Panthers. But I want to talk to you about a couple things that have been touched on here about transparency, about high school issues that you will hopefully take care of. This evening's attendance is another reminder that Board of Ed meetings at night, when parents can attend, instead of the predominance of meetings during the day, when I'm among the 1 to 4 testimony people who takes leave from work to come over here. Look at this packed room and listen to the people who want to communicate with you and don't have an opportunity during the daytime. I know my testimony 2 years ago made some of you uncomfortable and upset because I mentioned that Dylan Klebold of Columbine was a depressed kid under the influence of Eric Harris. Well, unfortunately, Parkland has reminded us that there's a lot of depressed kids out there and that you need to do what's under your purview to help our schools, and especially our high school level, where a lot of trouble is happening. You don't have the purview over gun laws, but what you do have is over mental health and adequate sleep for our children. For 1/16 of my son's high school career, after all the grades and test scores have been submitted, he's finally getting the sleep his body and mind need when he goes in at the same time as Loudoun County students have for their entire careers. He goes in at the same time that's a 2-hour dismissal, a 2-hour late arrival time that you give kids during snow days. Okay? That's what every child needs to be less irritable, be less under the influence of risky behavior, that you know the American Academy of Pediatrics and the CDC have told you that that's what high school kids need for the amount of sleep their body needs. So why aren't we making high schoolers less irritable? Why do we put them in a situation that just exacerbates bullying, problems, risk behavior? So we need to have these uncomfortable conversations. We need to talk about it in public. I've been a board watcher for about 8 to 10 years now, participated in a lot of meetings, and the longest I've seen you discuss high school issues was the hour and a half you spent on Latin honors and valedictorian, salutatorian. You need to talk about high school issues and what we can do for high schoolers every class, and we need to do it in public so our parents and community can help you solve problems. I ask for the resources that Annapolis Middle needs, going through the redistricting where we have similar problems as Lindale Middle. So thank you for taking care of and asking in the budget what we all need. Thank you.
Honorable Commissioners, thank you for your time, commitment, and service to our community. I come before you today as a former student, parent, and community member. It is the commitment to do what is right for all children, even in opposition, that brings me to you today. Upon entering high school, I quickly became the target for particular programs of students who were afforded opportunity to attend the school I was required to attend. After many failed attempts of repeated harassment, my innocence was unconsensually taken by 2 students of the specialty program located within my school. Physical and sexual assaults continued for 3 years, despite my attempts to report it to school officials. After 2 suicide attempts, I became one of your dropout statistics. The ever-present theme here this evening is school safety. I am a supporter of these efforts, particularly for students that attend schools offering programs for peers that have potential to cause harm to themselves or others. Students attending the school based on their residency are not provided with alternative programs or resources to avoid altercations with their potentially violent peers. When left to defend themselves because of their reported incidents and concerns, have gone unanswered, they are faced with excessive consequences that could tarnish their futures. The current events and outcomes that are all too familiar to what I faced while attending Chesapeake High School almost 20 years ago. Recently, there was an altercation in one of the stairwells of the high school. That same stairwell is the stairwell where I lost my innocence at the age of 14. That same stairwell is the stairwell where I had obtained a concussion that was so bad that I was out of school for 3 weeks. Upon returning to the school after my suicide attempts, I continued to be targeted and was expected to accept the fact that the students that were a part of the specialty program at the school were not held to the same standards. I refused to allow the county and the school's choice to overlook my safety to define my success. I enrolled in the external diploma program and completed it within 3 months, affording me the opportunity to attend Anne Arundel Community College, where I'm on track to graduate summa cum laude. The students who I feared the most while attending Chesapeake High School went on to accomplish very little. 2 have overdosed, 1 has recently been released from prison, and 1 is currently incarcerated. All 4 of these offenders during my time in high school were participants and pupils of the regional education program. It is completely disheartening to see that all these years later, administration is still failing to provide proper safety to the students at CHS. Students are exposed to peers who are high risk for violent behaviors and left with no choice but to take action to protect themselves, because the county and the school has failed to do so. They are faced with harsher consequences than the student who has been given ample opportunity and endless resources to correct their behavior. It is my hope that the social and behavior issues that come with the county's decision to place the regional ED program at Chesapeake High School do not continue to tarnish the future of CHS students. One could undoubtedly argue that the consequences faced to the comprehensive students are too harsh. The students are not given the opportunity to choose another school without going through a lottery system. They are not given the option to attend a school that doesn't put them at risk of encountering students with violent tendencies.
Thank you. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Haley Boone and I go to Chesapeake. And I am reaching out to you to talk about the program that was spoken before and how it has impacted my life. I agree that this program is to benefit the kids with the special behavior disorders, and they have the right to an education, but is not to sacrifice for my safety. When I first came to Chesapeake as a freshman, I wanted to get involved as soon as possible. So I ran for SGA and I became the secretary. I wanted to help plan my prom, so I went on to student council and planning my graduation. I loved it. I loved school. I was that kid who stood up when they said, "Who likes to be here today?" But after these incidents that have happened, I've changed that. I don't want to go to school. I fight my mom to go to school. She has to bribe me. But being involved in the child development program, that has really made me want to go into teaching into my future. But not anymore. I don't want to be in a classroom longer than I have to. And I just want to change that. I really do want to become a teacher, but I don't think I could be in a education world like that. I just want to get out of this environment and not go back to it. Not only has this program turned good kids who have never fought before into scared kids who just have to fight to walk through the halls and to get to class. This program has taken a future teacher that could have inspired so many and shaped our future generation. I am not writing to you to pick on these kids in this program. I'm calling them out for what they have done. But I can't just keep going to school and allowing these things to happen and them having no responsibility for their actions because of that they have behavioral issues. I agree that they have a right to an education. However, I have a right to a safe learning environment. I don't feel safe anymore. These children that are placed in my school for this program because they are a threat at their home school and have been put in a special program, but why do they sit next to me in class and have gym class with me? I don't understand. This program is not allowing me to get an education because I am too nervous to take a test next to these kids. And they're picking on a specific group of kids. Like, I wanted to wear a flannel to school one day and my mom told me to take it off because she just didn't want anything to happen to me. And I just don't want that to happen because I was breaking no AACPS code of conducts. But just simply because they pick on this specific group of people because they don't like the way they act or the way they look. Also, I would like to know how us at Chesapeake are supposed to get to Tech Ed, which is a required course in order to graduate from high school, but you have to go down their hallway because we have construction going on. This hallway is the biggest anxiety attack that could ever happen to a kid at Chesapeake. I'm not the only one who feels this way. I could name several people who want this to stop and just they hate going to those required classes and some classes that are fun to them because they don't want to go down that hallway. This program is not the problem, however, but however, years after years, it has been more unrestricted. Chesapeake is getting special funding to run this program and is not managed properly. Respect is earned. These kids should be separated until they are proven to be able to ready to socialize. There should be a level of security staff to be monitoring these kids, in addition to proper security and behavioral monitoring and the licensed therapist. They have put their funding over my safety, which is not right. As a member of Best Buddies, I know to stand up for those who cannot stand up for themselves, but that is not the case in this situation.
Thank you, Haley. Is there any other public comment at this time? I'd like to say something. Okay, there you go.
Good evening.
My name is Jerry Janik, and my sons will be going to Chesapeake in the next year and the year after that. And I'm not overly concerned about their safety. I'm concerned about the safety of all students. Now, I come at it from a unique perspective in that I have a really good understanding of bullying. And, you know, when you think about it, bullying is bullying is bullying. Doesn't matter whether you're a girl bullying another girl, or even a girl bullying a guy, or vice versa. Doesn't matter the ethnicity of that child that is being the bully. A bully is a bully is a bully. And you have to punish the bullies. What we've heard here tonight is actually that what ends up happening is you end up victimizing the victims. If you victimize the victims, that empowers the bully. It also depowers the teachers. You have to then have a program, and not a program, you have to have a policy in place. You say, we are not going to tolerate bullying. Now, there are thousands of hours of ads running all over this country about anti-bullying. You have to take it seriously. Now, bullying is a little bit different than a physical assault. Bullying is actually takes place over a period of time, generally speaking. It starts with usually a group of kids, but then after a while, when that kid feels threatened, just one kid is enough to bully. You have to sit there and say, okay, we've got to find the bullies, and we've got to deal with them. If you can deal with the bullies, the kids will feel safer. They'll learn more, which is what really the Board of Education is supposed to be doing. And two, you know, you'll give back some of the power to the teachers who needed to control the students. Right now, I've heard testimony, and I've seen it myself. The power is in the bully's hands. You have to have the guts and ability to take it back. That takes action. What we heard tonight, 20 years of inaction has left a lot of people scarred and hurt. Now, it's up to you. What I suspect is that really nothing is going to happen. But I can promise you that myself and the cohorts that met the other night, we are going to keep up on this, and we're going to chase this down as long and as hard as we can. We've got to find the bullies. There was an incident at the high school which actually brought me to that meeting the other night, where there's a group of kids that are bullying another group of kids. And the kid invaded his space, got right up into his space, spit at him, and then the kid responded by pushing him away. That kid is the victim. The other kid was the aggressor. The victim got 45 days suspension, and the aggressor got 10 days in-school detention. Now, that's the kind of stuff that has to stop. When someone says there's a bullying situation going on, before you hand down punishment, you have to sit down and investigate the incident, take it seriously, and determine who's really at fault. Thank you.
Hello, board members. My name is Elizabeth Carl. I don't have anything prepared. I came at the advice of my daughter, who is in confirmation class tonight, but she was very outspoken before I left and told me I should come. She currently attends Lindale Middle School. She's a STEM student who is thriving in that program. She's in the National Junior Honor Society. I don't hear her have a lot of complaints, but my ears are very open to the community. Between my husband and I, but in the schools and in the local youth programs, we volunteer at least 40 hours a week. And I am a lacrosse coach to 21 girls that went to Linthicum Elementary School, a national blue ribbon school, just a couple years ago. And none of them are in the STEM program. They're all in the general population of Lindale Middle School. So I keep my ears open. I talk to the girls. They feel very safe talking to me. And I've had I keep asking, I keep checking in based off of other parents that I've heard. A few of these parents also went to Linthicum Elementary School. 3 of them had issues last year with bullies. Repeatedly met with the administration, did not get a satisfactory response. All 3 of them have gone to private schools. Thank God they have found the resources to send their children to private school, but I will put their names on records in case you want to check on that. It's Mason Jones, was in the general population last year, went to St. Philip Neri. You
No
can't do
names.
that?
No
Okay.
names.
But there are 3. You can speak with me afterwards if you would like to verify that. Those are only the 3 that I am aware of, and still in circles are discussing how awful their experiences were with dealing with these harassment issues. All of them were great honor roll students when they were in Linthicum Elementary School. The thing that concerned me recently, my daughter mentioned there was an issue with a child that had bags of marijuana for distribution. There was no letter, there was no communication to any of the parents about this incident. One of the other girls had said to her, they named the name, they had said, snitches end up in ditches. I said, what are you guys talking about? They said, we fear, that's the mantra at school. And I've not mentioned this to any other parent at Lindale. My daughter said, you should come and tell them that the students that are disruptive, she only has 2 or 3 core classes. She loves Spanish. She cannot get an education because they're so disruly in the general population classes, the 2 or 3 that she has. Not a problem with STEM. There are some issues with some STEM students that have ADHD or have issues, but she's also frustrated because when there's an issue with one of them, they're told, we're aware of that. You have to go deal with finding a way to get through your learning. And she said, that just shouldn't be, Mom. We shouldn't be the ones punished because other people have behavioral problems. So,
Thank you, Ms. Carl. Are there any other comments? All right. Is someone coming? Okay. I thought the boys were all coming up.
Good evening. I too don't have a speech prepared. My name is Donna Rigby, and my son attends Lindale Middle School. And I've heard all these parent stories, and it has been a journey. But I want to tell you that my husband is a retired Baltimore City police officer. He served 27 years. He's been retired for 2.5 years. And one of the things that compelled him to become a substitute teacher in Anne Arundel County is the horrific reports he would read from his officers. And he took pride in that. He has a master's degree from Johns Hopkins University, and he started substituting in Anne Arundel County Public Schools. He refuses to teach in high schools, any high school in this county, because of the way that things are handled, the behavior, the limitations on teachers. Recently, my husband inquired. He is legally authorized to carry a weapon. He inquired with somebody at the board about that and was told that he is not allowed to carry his weapon while he is a substitute teacher. Okay. But he could be wearing his weapon if he came into school as a parent to visit our son's classroom or in an IEP meeting. He could be carrying. Does that even make sense? It just doesn't make sense to me. So at what point, if he were there as a substitute teacher and an active shooter were to come in, what do you want him to do? He's legally authorized to carry in the state of Maryland, retired Baltimore City police officer. I tell him at that moment, he looks at another adult and says, I quit, and he responds. You've got to do something about the schools, about the bullying, about the teachers' hands that are tied in the classrooms. These kids are not able to get an education. What would you do in a classroom where somebody is constantly badgering you, a 14 or 15-year-old, and you cannot teach the rest of your class because you have to deal with one person? I say hold the parents accountable, but, that's never going to happen. You guys have a big job. I wish you well in it, and I certainly hope something gets done before somebody gets hurt. Thank you for your time. Welcome.
Thank you, Ms. Rigby.
My name is William Snell. My wife and I are new residents of Annapolis about 1.5 years ago. We have 2 daughters and their families, including 6 grandkids in the public schools here. And I also didn't prepare any comments, but I don't know a lot about what's going on in the community, but it does seem like there are lots of serious problems. And I know you folks are all working hard on them. But it does seem to me, just from a big picture point of view, there are some failures of leadership that are going on, both in the school level, possibly at the board level. There are some problems with policy. And one comment I'd like to make is that we have to remember this is in a backdrop in a county that is 21st in the United States of all counties in household income. Just want to say we have the resources here to, I think, solve a lot of these problems where money can help. And that's all I have to say.
Paula Nicholson, Chesapeake High School. My daughter was bullied and ended up in Shepherd Pratt for a week. It's not only bullying, it's sexual harassment. Sexual harassment is against the law. Why is it acceptable in Anne Arundel County schools? Enough is enough.
Is there any other public comment? I see one more. Oh, and one back there.
Hi, my name is Bobby Geisler, and my son is an 8th grader at Lindale Middle School. Since the 6th grade, since he started Lindale, he has been nothing but tormented, from anywhere from 2 kids to 10 kids. He has been punched in the face 3 times before first period, in the first marking period of 6th grade. My son has been almost jumped on a field trip that we had to pull him off of because there was no male chaperone to go in the bathroom with him. So therefore, we had to get the facility staff to go into the bathroom with him. My son has also been called names by a teacher that were very racially slurred just because he was a smart butt in class. So we actually begged the school for 2 years to fix this. We have filed bully reports. We have done meetings. I have done everything I possibly could to get this school to do something for my son. It took an outside person that owns a jiu-jitsu studio in Glen Burnie to offer my son 2 months of free classes to learn some self-discipline, how to fight back, and so that he had a little bit of self-confidence. My son went through this for 6th grade, 7th grade. It's still a little bit now, but the end of 7th grade, my son was in jiu-jitsu and finally learned some skills. A kid poured water on him while he was in the lunchroom. Nobody did anything to them. So he picked the kid up and he threw him on the ground. My son was suspended for defending himself, which we accepted. My son has been suspended 3 times this year for defending himself. And so, according to your rules, my son is supposed to be in the rep program or whatever it is. Never heard from them, even though the school told me that I would. And I even told them that I would never send my kid to a program that teaches that you cannot defend yourself, especially dealing with what he has. He doesn't want to go to school. He's not in STEM. He's in Gem Pop. And he will be in high school next year. But he's not my concern as much as my daughter. He's very strong. My son lets everything roll off of his back, and he acts like nothing matters, and it doesn't even faze him. My daughter, on the other hand, she's a very sensitive person. Anybody even looks at her wrong and she's in tears. So I highly worry about her safety when it comes to Lindale. And I really encourage you guys to take a look into these schools because I can't imagine what half these parents have gone through with their kids, knowing what I've gone through with mine.
Thank you, Ms. Geisler.
Hi, my name is Terry Dockery. I'm the mother of Nick Dockery. I don't know if I'm supposed to talk about this tonight because my case is so fresh. Dr. Olato, you might see this case come across your desk this week. My son and his friends were the ones involved in this spitting incident in the stairwell at Chesapeake High School. Julia has given me the strength to come up here and express my concern. This bullying incident has been going on for so long, it's unbelievable. I encourage you to, when you read this file, when it comes across your desk, to watch the video that's involved in it, because I'm sure it will turn your stomach. These boys are being bullied because they wear camo.
We can't talk about the specific case.
Okay. But I just want to encourage you to watch the video, please. Thank you.
Is there any other public comment? All right.
Hi there. I just wanted to challenge the board. My name is Don Pollock. I have a student at Chesapeake Bay Middle and Chesapeake High School. I have a different solution. The board wouldn't like it, so I'm not going to mention it for some of these incidents. But I want to challenge the board. If you have children of school age, send them to these schools. And I promise you, you won't have this crowd ever again, because I know things will be done. That's my challenge to you. If you have school-age kids and they're not in these high schools, it's a good move on your part. But if you put them in these schools, I promise you, you will take action. And that's what we need. Talking, bullying reports, that's all great stuff to kick the can down the road. Something serious is going to happen in one of these schools, and the only thing I can tell you is, next election, it's going to be a different group of faces up here.
Is there any other public comment?
My name's James Jordan. I'm state president for an organization called Guardians of the Abused. We stand against child abuse, we stand against bullying, we stand against animal abuse. I'm here tonight because of the one incident that Ms. Thackeray was speaking about a few minutes ago. It came across our Facebook page, and I was asked if I would be here tonight because I was speaking with some of the other people that have been involved, and they said that the boys that are being bullied really wanted to meet me because we're a second step that these children, male, female, both, if they have a problem, they can't sleep, they're more than welcome to call my telephone at 3 o'clock in the morning. I won't have a problem with it whatsoever. This stuff needs to stop. It's plain and simple. There's no need for kids to be bullied, be called names because of the way they dress. And to fight back and get in trouble for defending yourself, that's even worse. Because that's saying that the bullies have total control of everything, as to when they shouldn't have any control of anything. That's all I have to say.
Thank you, Mr. Jordan. Is there any other public comment?
Good evening. My name is Melissa Ellis. I wasn't prepared to speak tonight, but I feel very moved. I'm very concerned as a parent and a citizen of Anne Arundel County to know how this bullying problem is not known by you. Where is the breakdown in communication? I think everyone deserves an answer on that. I, for one, have for a very long time now been concerned about the mental health of all of our students. The incidence of depression, anxiety, substance abuse are greatly on the rise. I've seen how many of the stresses have impacted my children and their friends. It's something I feel very deeply about, and obviously many people do. So I'm asking you tonight to please focus your attention, all of your policies and dollars, focus them on the well-being of our students. You need to adequately staff our schools and provide the resources they need for a safe environment and a meaningful education. And please, please figure out the breakdown that makes this issue news to you tonight. It should never have gotten this far. I'm sure you're very concerned, but it reflects on your leadership that this is happening in our schools. Thank you.
I just want to make one comment that we are aware of this and we're aware of it before tonight, but things like this are being handled addressed on the school level, and we'll be following through to make sure. But when it comes to the speaking at the board, most of these issues we are aware of and are working towards. So when people speak, just because we have not replied to them does not know that we don't know. Do not call out from the audience, please. Thank you.
I'm sorry, I wasn't planning on speaking tonight. I have twins that are sophomores at Chesapeake High School. We came from 101st Airborne Division. We're a military family. We're very structured. The first day they went to school, Mom, they do weed. I said, avoid that. Well, I have to go to the bathroom there because it's next to this classroom or I won't be able to go. They, at this point, have given up. They watch other kids being bullied. They see the teachers do nothing. And they don't want to do anything. They're not empowered themselves. So even if they're not bullying or being bullied, they're still a part of the system. And so are your educators if they're allowing this to go on.
Are there any other comments? Okay, we're going to take a brief recess before we go into the budget, and we'll be back in 5 minutes. Item 4.01 is an action item, the superintendent's recommended fiscal year operating budget. Dr. Arlotto, your recommendation.
Yes, ma'am. I'm recommending board approval of the operating budget of $1,198,069,488.
So moved.
Second. We have a presentation? Or
For the record, Alex Shaknovich, Chief Operating Officer.
Matt Stansky, Director of Finance Operations.
And we don't have a presentation. The budget that is before you at the bottom line level stays the same. I do want to bring to the board's attention one adjustment from the budget that was initially submitted from Dr. Arlotto. We customarily, in the month of December, given some preliminary state budget estimates, and then they're firmed up as the months go along. We did receive, near the end of January, another communique from the state that indicated that we would, from the state on the revenue side, pick up an additional $202,888. So consequently, as we have done in years past, that we have increased the state revenue number from approximately $9.3 million up to $9.5 million. And then we have done a dollar-for-dollar offset. So the request from the county has gone down by that exact same $202,888 from approximately $40.1 million down to $39.9 million. And with that, we stand prepared to answer any questions you might have.
There are a number of amendments that board members have submitted, and Ms. Howell, I'm going to throw you off because we're going to go out of order. So I'm sorry from the number we originally had. We are going to start with amendment number 6. And right. Oh. Or hold on a second. Just and I make a motion to amend the budget to increase the number of additional school counselor positions in the superintendent's recommended operating budget from 5.4 to 14.4. And this would be an increase of $867,330. Okay. And now I have, bear with me. As parents, educators, and simply caring people, everyone is horrified by the tragedy at Stoneman Douglas High School last week. There's been extensive discussion about what can be done to prevent future attacks and how we can protect our children. I have heard again and again that you can't put a price tag on the safety of children, and there is always the need to evaluate and improve our physical safety protocols. However, if we really want to change the trajectory of a child's life, we can't simply focus on stopping an event that may or may not happen one day. We need to focus on the very real events that happen every single day in every one of our schools with every one of our students. The future high school dropout or opioid user or unemployed 20-something or, heaven forbid, perpetrator of mass violence is not created in one day. What will make the difference and what does make the difference are relationships built over weeks and months and years. Children that come to school anxious, depressed, lonely, and neglected are changed and given hope when they find relationship. When a child knows that someone cares for them, supports them, and loves them, it can and does change the course of their lives. People enter education because they care about children and want to build relationships that will change children's lives by igniting their intellectual curiosity, by teaching them career skills, by loving and caring for them as the amazing individuals they are. All of our educators want to be that safe place and that relationship. But when our middle school teachers are teaching multiple sections of 35 or 40 kids, relationship building is limited. When a guidance counselor has 800 students to serve, she will not be able to connect with every child who comes to school lonely. When a psychologist must split his time between multiple schools, he cannot provide mental health support to all the students in need. By not providing the funding for the staff we truly need, our county is shortchanging our children. We are missing the chance to change students' lives, and we will pay even more for it in the future when those children we weren't able to connect with become unemployed, addicted, or worse. We can't keep treading water with the bare minimum year after year. Eventually, sooner rather than later, we will start to sink and lose more of our children. So when I hear people say no price is too high for the safety of our children, I say I agree. Let's start paying that price, the price of investing in relationships that truly change lives. Let's provide funds for the positions necessary to truly meet the needs of our children. My hope is that every child finds that support on multiple fronts in our schools, from the custodian to the classroom teacher to the guidance counselor to the coach. Research and our own life experience tell us that even just one caring, trusted adult in a child's life can make the difference between dropout and success, between violence and purpose. We must do everything possible to provide that caring adult and make that difference. This amendment is a start. It is to add 9 additional guidance counselors to Dr. Arlotto's request so that every elementary school in Anne Arundel County with 650 students or more can have 2 guidance counselors. It's still not enough, but I believe it's a step in the right direction. Is there any other comments from board comments on this amendment? Mr. Grannon. Dealing with mental health, that was one that should be brought up first and foremost because of issues that had come up. Are there any other comments from the board? Is there any public comment on this item, on this amendment? I'm sorry, I made a mistake. Ms. Brandenburg had wanted to speak on this, and I missed her. I missed your card.
It is not your amendment
in
particular, but it's all the amendments that we're about to see. Our administration believes the superintendent's budget is thoughtful and well constructed. It advances many of our shared priorities and represents an appropriate framework for helping the county's help develop the county's budget. Like you, we are concerned with mental health, English language learners, class size, workload, and compensation for our dedicated educators. His budget proposal is aggressive yet reasonable. We will do our best to fulfill that request to the extent possible. However, if you are inclined to add funding to this budget, please prioritize your additions in the context of the superintendent's recommendation. Thank you very much.
I just wanted to say good evening, everyone. But I also wanted to say thank you very much for this amendment. I feel like this is needed and much, much more. But I think this is a step in the right direction. I want us, just feeling this here tonight, and I've been feeling it in Annapolis cluster and feeling it everywhere, that we are ready, our community is ready for more, and I've heard you all speak on behalf of our students. I know that you are passionate and caring as well. So it is time for us to step up our game, and we need to ask for what our kids need. And I know that this is a step in the right direction, but this is not okay, and I know it's not okay to you either, and we need something dramatic. So if our budget needs to be dramatic and the county needs to respond, then it's their fault if we're not getting what our kids need. It's not your fault, it's not our fault, it's their fault, and we need to have them own this because our kids deserve better, as I know you know. So thank you very much for this amendment, and I would love to see this even added to. Thank you.
Ms. Norman.
Janet Norman. Thank you very much for adding more counselors. As we all know, they are desperately needed, and we appreciate that effort. I'm questioning maybe why we are not adding more and why you are choosing the elementary level in addition to where they're needed at the high school level. And perhaps you could solve a lot of the problems that you've listed, drug abuse, anxious, depressed, lonely, with something for our 22,000 high school students, like more mentally appropriate start and sleep regimes that the nation's doctors are telling you would be helpful. So we have 9 counselors. We would love to have 12 more counselors for the high school level. I know Annapolis High is overwhelmed with student needs, and we could severely benefit. Our students would very much benefit from having additional counselors. So please consider that, and please ask for the full and resources that our students need. If you don't ask for it, the county cannot provide it. Thank you.
Just to clarify, Ms. Norman, the amendment is just to add the additional counselor positions. It doesn't necessarily assign them to elementary schools. That would be a decision made by the superintendent and his staff if they were added as to where they would go.
Okay. Well, your description.
My description was that's how I came up with that number, but that
Okay.
will be the decision of the superintendent if this amendment is, if this is funded.
Okay. And what led you to prefer them at the elementary versus the high school level or middle
because
school?
we have a number of elementary schools with 650 and more students and one guidance counselor for 650 students, and that was, I believe, is unacceptable. So.
Right. Yeah, I agree. Thank you very much.
Good evening. My name is Jessica Snell-Johns. I'm a local psychologist and a parent of children in the schools. Thank you so much. I want to express my full support of the direction that this is going, but I want to reiterate it is simply not enough and that we have to ask for what we believe that we need. And I really believe the county could come to understand that we're going to save money if we're smart about meeting our kids' needs. And it's not just academic, it's social, emotional, and it impacts us all. So thank you so much for the step in this direction, but I just want to reiterate that this is from hearing what we were hearing about the high school level and our opportunities to meet the needs of not just the victims but the bullies, this is too small. Thank you very much.
Mr. Gilliland.
Thank you, Madam President. And I just want to say that I was just scrolling through a few emails during the break, and because we've been getting a lot of them in the last 24 hours. And just today, I've had emails from parents of students at Broadneck Elementary School and Oak Hill Elementary School requesting additional guidance counselors because of the support that they see the counselors providing, and they just think they're being spread too thin. And I think this is an amendment that moves us in the right direction, and it's necessary. Thank you.
Mr. Grannon.
Okay, I guess I want to take a brief opportunity to address this. I fully agree with the substance of what you're saying and the spirit of what you're saying. The concern that I have, and I'm just going to announce now, I'm going to vote against this amendment, and I'm going to vote against all the amendments tonight that seek to add to the budget. I think that when a representative from the county government says, you know, this is a good budget, but it's aggressive, and we're going to try to fund what's there, I'm doing this not because I don't care about these things, not because I don't care about school counselors. I don't think they could have an impact. But I think that this body, I think that this board should be the decider of the budget. I don't think the county executive should be the decider of the budget, and I don't think the county council should be the decider of the budget. And when we take the attitude or the philosophy of just ask for as much as you need without taking into account what's actually available to fund these things, we take our position. We take ourselves out of the role of being the deciders of the budget, and we become just requesters. And that's not what I want to do, and that's what I hope future boards won't do. I think that this board should be the decider of the budget, not Dr. Arlotto, not the county executive, not the county council. And there are many other priorities that we can have. I'm not saying that this one isn't important, but you start adding $868,000 here, another million there, another million there, and the money is not going to be there to do it. And I'm basing this on the very real experience of last budget cycle. Dr. Arlotto requested $43 million in additional funds, and as part of that, there was a request for 120 new FTEs. We got 29 million, so 14 million less, and we got 0 new FTEs. I voted against the request when it went out, and I think I was the only one that voted against the budget when it came back from the county council. Every single one that was on the board at the time, Mr. Butcher, you weren't here, Ms. Cole, you weren't here, every single other board member sat and said, when the budget went out, we must have this amount of money. We cannot run the school system without having all of these positions filled. It came back from the county council with 0 FTEs, and you all voted for it. That is abdicating this board's responsibility and is putting to the hands of the other political branches. I don't think we should do that now, and I certainly don't think we should do that when this board becomes elected. We should be the final arbiters of each line item in that budget. And when we send out a budget that cannot possibly be funded, we just kick that can down the road to other people to make that decision. So I just want to articulate this once. I'm voting against this amendment, not because I don't think we need more school counselors, but we need as many school counselors as we can possibly afford. And when you just add on 9 and say, here's another $870,000, all you're doing is saying, Jerry Walker, you decide how many how many school counselors we should have. This councilman, you should decide how many school counselors we should have. We are closer to these issues. We work harder on these issues. We care more about these, and we know more about these issues. We should be the deciders.
Ms. Sasso.
I beg to differ from you, Mr. Grannon. Your and my fiduciary responsibility is to the children, not to the county. And literally, you know, what is needed in this county was reflected tonight here. That's what we have to look at. That's why you should go and visit the schools. That's why you should be completely involved with what is really happening and not just a board decision about numbers. Because what is really needed is what is happening in the county, not numbers. I am responsible to the children, and basically the children will get from me a request that is needed. Now, it's for the county to decide, basically, and the public to know that maybe the taxes that they're paying are not enough for this board. So then the next step that we do is that when this budget is going to be presented to the county, we go there in mass to tell the county this is what we need. And like you said it, this board should be making the decisions, not the county. So I like our county executive, I belong to his party, but I know what the children need, not what the party might want to do or whatever it is. Because it is the children who basically put me here, and that's what they need. Because I think it's very pitiful to look at all of these people here talking about the needs in their school, and for us to sit here and say, no, we're not going to vote for counselors? Come on. It's your fiduciary responsibility to protect the children.
Mr. Grannon.
Yeah, I'm just going to be very brief and not make this ad hominem at all. It's not about personalities. Ms. Sasso, I think you know that I'm very fond of you personally, and I respect a lot of your views professionally as well. All I'm going to say then is what you're saying, your words, are not matched by your actions, because you voted for a budget last year to send it out that requested $43 million and 120 new FTEs, and then when it came back through the political branches with only 29 million and 0 new FTEs, you voted for that budget. You should have voted against it if you didn't believe it was sufficient for the school's needs. Match your vote to what you're saying. You might disagree with what I'm saying, but my vote matches what I'm saying.
Are there any other comments on this amendment to add 9 additional counselors to the superintendent's recommended budget?
Vicki Calhoun again. I'm going to tell you, I submitted to the Kerwin Commission how the Army does institutional training modeling so that we could get rid of that stupid funding model. What I would tell you is you are both right. You are both right. And that funding formula has to be gone. I will give you the information. I talked to some people at the staff today, and I'll give it to you. But right now, you've got a ball of wax. You just got to live with it, and we need to go after the funding formula. When he just subtracted that money, everybody, that was the problem. That was the problem. That funding formula, it's a fixed amount of money, and all you guys are trying to do is allocate it. And I appreciate all your effort and your words. Thank you.
Any other comments? Okay, all those in favor of this amendment? Opposed?
I'm going to abstain.
And 1 abstention. Okay. Amendment number 7 Ms. Korbelak.
I just want to echo what Ms. Sasso had to say. Last week, President Heimer forwarded all of us a letter from County Executive Shu requesting that this board not amend Dr. Arlotto's budget in a manner that increases his overall funding request. And while I agree wholeheartedly with our county executive that Dr. Arlotto's budget is a measured and reasonable and sensible one, we were all appointed to ask for more of what our system needs. And that's what I will be doing this evening. I happen to believe our county revenue may increase beyond predictions based on the new federal tax law and the lockbox legislation proposal. So I'm optimistic that we'll have more money to spend on education than is currently anticipated. I would like to offer the following package of changes to the superintendent's recommended operating budget. I'd like to increase the number of additional school psychologist positions from 2 to 5.8, and that increases the recommended operating budget by $430,520. I'd also like to increase the number of additional social worker positions from 2 to 8, and this increases the recommending operating budget by $649,620 for a total increase of $1,080,140. I'd just like to explain how I arrived at these numbers. The first one for school psychologists, this would give us the ability to have a full-time school psychologist at all high schools and middle schools, or more days at our elementaries. Our superintendent would place these school psychologists where he and his staff determine we have the greatest need, but right now he doesn't even have enough positions to even begin to approach the recommended ratio of 1 psychologist for every 500 to 700 students, as recommended by the National Association of School Psychologists. These school psychologists provide assessments, special education support, and they're clinically trained to deal with issues our guidance counselors may not be prepared to deal with. For the social worker, the additional social workers would provide valuable support to our families. They help connect our families in need with important county and state services. Right now we have 22.8 social workers across the entire county, and 5 of them are dedicated just to the Phoenix Academy alone. Only 4 of our high schools have a full-time social worker. And while I realize adding 6 more isn't going to take care of the issue, it helps.
Are there any board comments? Is there any public comment? Okay.
Jessica Snell-Johns again. I just want to remind us all that this is a cost of a house. This is a cost of a house to make sure that our high schools have 1 psychologist. Let's remember that.
Are there any other public comment? Okay.
On behalf of Annapolis High School and our recent discussions at the Annapolis High School PTSA, this has been clearly identified as a need, and we very much appreciate and support this amendment. Please support it also.
All right. Are there any other comments? Okay. All those in favor of amendment number 7? Opposed? Abstain? Okay. 711. Amendment number 8 is myself. Increase the number of additional special education teacher positions in the superintendent's recommended operating budget from 16 to 23. This would increase the recommended operating budget by $528,290.
Second.
Just reiterating what I said before, I believe that the way we make a difference and we save our children is through relationships, and our special education students are often those that feel most vulnerable and are most in need of connections with a trusted adult, and this will give us more options for our ever-increasing enrollment to have that. Mr. Reinhardt.
Thank you, Madam President. Increasing special education teacher positions is very close to me throughout my teaching career. I always enjoyed working with co-taught classes and found my co-teacher to be a valuable resource and having shared responsibility in the classroom. In my final year at North County, where our special educators faced some of the highest caseloads in the county, watching my co-teachers struggle with the workload while also managing all the teaching responsibilities on top of the coaching responsibilities was it's unbelievable. I mean, I thought I had a terrible workload. And then watching what he would have to struggle with is unimaginable, and especially as a newlywed, I'm sure his wife struggles with that too. So 16 to 23, while that may not seem like a large increase, imagining what that can do just to allow one person to focus with 5 or 10 more students. And we'd had a discussion earlier, Ms. Hummer. What did this end up doing to the overall number of students served? Was this the 45? No, okay, with so many numbers.
Right. Dealing with so many numbers. That one, yes. I don't know. Are there any other board comments? Is there any public comment? Okay. All those in favor of increasing the special education teachers from 16 to 23? All those opposed? Abstain? 711. Amendment number 9, Ms. Sasso.
My amendment is to increase the number of additional bilingual facilitator positions in the superintendent's recommended operating budget from 2 to 4. My reasoning behind it is...
Let me second first. Okay.
My reason behind it is, since I work with the Hispanic community, the relationship with the parents and the school is very, very important, so that they do get involved and basically learn what their children are doing and can really assist them in the school system. And this is very, very important, especially in the middle school. And we do have a problem over here in this county, and it goes all the way back to the 90s, because I have dealt with it, and that has to do with the gang issue of the MS-13. We cannot ignore it. I have dealt with it in high school. 3 kids this year, basically, the parents removed them from the school because they were involved in the gang. So if the parents basically don't know that the child is not in school, has skipped school, and basically is not going over there, and that's what basically these bilingual facilitators will do, is basically keep complete connection with the parents. The budget impact increases the superintendent recommended operating budget by $137,340. And I would say this is basically a very limited amount of money when you consider that some of those kids, if they land in jail, they cost us more than that on a yearly basis.
Are there any of the board comments? And I would echo again, Ms. Sasso, as I said, that how important the relationship is, and the bilingual facilitators are definitely a resource there that builds the relationship with kids and their families. So is there any public comment?
Janet Norman, the Ward 7 appointed member of the Annapolis Education Commission, and I want to assure you that the Annapolis Education Commission has strongly supported the need for additional bilingual facilitators in our cluster. And I might remind you that you're earning $102,000 to date from the Annapolis Middle Cell Tower that could easily go to subsidizing some of these positions. They are desperately needed. We've had difficulty at Annapolis Middle after the redistricting when sufficient bilingual facilitators did not come over with the number of students that were transferred to the school. And we're having a serious issue of flight from the school and problems in the school. So we need these resources, and we appreciate you voting for them. Thank you.
My name is Erin Snell, and I'm part of the Eastport Working Together community effort that's been supporting just revitalization and support. And I've been hearing firsthand from students who go to the Phoenix School about their difficulties of their friends and themselves with not having enough translators, bilingual facilitators. I've heard a student say, when my teacher calls and speaks in English and I'm supposed to be translating, I lie because I don't want my parents to know what's happening. I don't want them to hear bad things. And so this, hearing firsthand from these students and hearing how their friends and their parents can't communicate the way they want with the school, I just wanted to put my support for this and express what these students have shared. And so thank you very much for this amendment.
Are there any other comments? All those in favor of adding 2 additional bilingual facilitators? Opposed? Abstain? 711. Amendment number 10, Ms. Sasso.
Once again, the proposal of this amendment is to increase the number of additional English language acquisition teacher position in the superintendent's recommended operating budget from 25 to 30. So we are increasing it 5 more. The budgetary impact in this increase for the superintendent's recommended operating budget is $377,350.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Okay. Is there any board comment? Ms. Sasso, do you want
I
to
will. I would like to make the comment, especially to a foreign student, a Latin American student, or from any nation that is not the United States. When they grow up, they basically, outside of the United States, their culture is not the same as what the American culture is. And we must bring these children into the USA way of life. If you look at a child that comes from El Salvador or from Mexico, you need to understand that some of them just slept on the floor, so they have absolutely no idea what it is to sleep on a bed or to cook in a stove. We must basically make these children learn the English language so that they can basically become part of the American way of life. And the workload right now of these teachers is very unfathomable. We really need to have the proportion of the student ratios to be easy to handle.
Are there any other board comments? Any public comment?
The members of the Annapolis Education Commission who are appointed by the mayor and city council support this amendment as desperately needed for our Annapolis cluster. We personally, Annapolis Education Commission members, have driven English language learners to the South River Powerhawks robotics camp during the summer, and we know a number of striving students whose parents cannot help their children achieve what these children are capable of achieving. And we need these teachers. Thank you.
Mr. Reinhardt.
Thank you, Madam President. For clarification, the superintendent is going to be assigning the locations for these positions that we've been discussing this evening, correct? Correct. All right, thank you.
Okay, are there any other questions or comments? Okay. All those in favor of increasing the superintendent's budget for English language acquisition teachers from 25 to 30? Okay. Opposed? Abstain? 711.
Well, this amendment is one that is near and dear to my heart. As most of you know, I was in the classroom. Was a teacher for over 30 years before becoming an administrator. I had 40 kids one year in my class, in my 4th grade class, and I've had to deal with the large classes. So my amendment is to increase the number of additional teachers to reduce class sizes in the superintendent's recommended operating budget from 30 to 45. This will increase the budget by $1,130,550. I feel strongly about this. I know it's not.
We need a second first, Ms. Nally.
Okay.
Okay. Now, Ms. Nally.
I feel strongly about this, and I've also had many, many emails from parents who who are concerned about class sizes over and over. And when we hear tonight
about everybody talking about the problems at schools. I will tell you, our middle schools, and especially, are having a terrible time with high class sizes. So that's my reasoning, and I can't imagine. I agree with wholeheartedly what Mrs. Sasso says. We are here for the children, and this amendment is for the children.
Mr. Gilliland.
Thank you, Madam President. I just wanted to, and I think Mrs. Nally echoed, I think sentiment that many of us may share. I believe throughout this entire school year thus far, the most emails we've received on any one topic have been about class sizes. And it's not just one part of the county that has felt the impact of us increasing our student population by roughly 1,500. I might be off. By 2,200 over the past 2 years, but 1,500 last year, with no net increase in teachers. So, and my wife was in your 4th grade class. So, but she I shouldn't have said that. But I can't think of, and again, you know, I know there's some more amendments, and you know, we'll address compensation and some other things momentarily, but this to me just hits home because the needs are on every corner of this county with regard to class sizes, and certainly that impacts teacher workload, and that impacts the student learning experience as well. So thank you for the amendment.
Are there any other board comments? Is there any public comment? Okay.
Hello again. I think that this amendment is good. I don't think it's enough. I think it's a drop in the bucket compared to what we really need. And so while I'm in the back there listening and happy to see all of these amendments, why don't we ask for what we really need? And I think that's more to the tune of 400 FTE, not 200, whatever it was in the proposed budget. And I know that we might not get funded for that, but if we don't ask, if we don't try, and if we don't scream from the top of our lungs about all of these things at every instance and be persistent, then we're not going to get what we need. And Mr. Grannon, I'm just really disappointed. I'm sorry.
Ms. Sasso.
Just so that the public knows, the board had asked Dr. Arlotto to provide us with teachers needed to offset class sizes. So when the board looked at it, yes, maybe we could ask for 400, but the fact is we're not going to get 400, not from the budget, but to find 400 teachers to come into the school system next year. You know, so we are being very realistic and basically trying to put our sizes in the classrooms between 30 to 35, which is more manageable than over 40 that we have it nowadays. So the board, when they have made all of these amendments, is because we ask for data so that we could be realistic in what we can ask for, what we can get, and what is really realistic. You know, like you said, 400 teachers, I agree, but we can't find them any place. We won't be able to find 400 teachers.
Bill Snell again. I do appreciate, now that I'm getting to know the board a little bit better, I do appreciate the hard work and the many hours, I'm sure, and the high pay you guys get too, I'm sure. But I know. Two things I would like to ask. I'll start with one thing because I won't be able maybe to remember the second one. But one of the problems that I've heard tonight about why it might be difficult to get more teachers is because teachers don't want to come here because of all the problems that they have. And so it's a vicious cycle, I think. And I guess the other question that I would ask, maybe directing it to Mr. Grannon, is what, and this is an honest, this is not a, I just wonder what's the harm with asking the right for what we think truly is the correct amount. Maybe that's a bad strategy, but I don't understand. I guess the other part of the question then is, how does the board send a message to the county that's not enough, that we do need more? Because it sounds like you feel, Mr. Grannon, that that's just not going to, the message is going to go unheard. So I guess the other part of the question then is, the issue is, how do we let the county commissioners know, or the county council know, this is not enough, and go public with that kind of a statement? I don't know the answer to that, but it seems that's a really critical question that needs to be addressed that I haven't heard discussed yet.
Thank you very much for this amendment, and I hope you will all support it. What I would love to hear is that you share with the public the calculations you've gone through, so that we all can have this transparent discussion as a county. What number of students in a classroom is acceptable to us as county taxpayers? Tell us what the number of FTEs and how that will affect the class sizes. But respect us enough to have these conversations in public, not just among yourselves, so that you see the numbers and we don't. We can't advocate on the county level if we don't have the same information that you have. So please share that. I would also, I'm here tonight because our Annapolis High School IB physics, chemistry teacher could not be here. He's at his second job teaching as a swimming coach in order to pay his bills. If you look at the starting salaries of our teachers, they're extremely low, and he's going to be leaving, as many of our other, 20 of our other Annapolis High teachers have, to the other jurisdictions. And we cannot replace those skills of someone who's qualified enough to teach calculus, IB physics. You're not getting someone, and you're just leaving them to Montgomery County and Howard County. That's why we can't get the teachers we need. So you have to address systemically the teacher pay, the lost steps, the whole reasons why we're suffering in this county. So I appreciate you bringing that discussion into the public realm.
Are there any other public comments or board comments? Okay. Mr. Reinhardt.
Thank you. Just to reiterate Ms. Sasso's point about where will we find 400 certified individuals to fill positions that if we were to ask for every single one we need. And I think once we provide that table publicly, you'll see it's greater than 400. Currently, the state of Maryland as a whole imports 50% of new teachers. So it's more than just other jurisdictions hiring before us or offering better pay. It's finding folks right here in Maryland who want to embrace education as a career and then decide to come here to Anne Arundel County. But as it is, we're an importer of almost half of the teachers because we just simply can't produce enough here. Certainly, as we heard at the last board meeting, we can step up our recruitment efforts. We can do more for diversity fairs. We can do more to move our hiring up into the fall for a lot of our winter grads. But simply finding that many highly qualified, hireable individuals is going to be a challenge. Now, if we're willing to take on 150 folks with a temporary certification with a promise that they're going to go ahead and do everything that they need to do, I've hired those folks, and sometimes it works out, sometimes it doesn't, but then we get an even bigger headache down the road. So yes, do we need 200? Absolutely. Are they out there? Not right now. Now, we did have a request from the board to see how many open positions were currently here in the county, and I'm proud to report that it's in the teens, and most of those positions are newly vacated or recently vacated. So we don't have this huge crunch of open positions out there, but when we're looking at those new folks who are coming into education for the first time, we simply aren't producing them here in Maryland, and that's a whole nother discussion. Thank you.
Any other comments? All right. All those in favor of increasing the number of additional class teachers to reduce class sizes from 30 to 45? Opposed? Abstain? 711. Okay. Now we will go back to amendment number 1, Ms. Howell. Mr. Gilliland.
Thank you, Madam President. I guess we can say in every parade there's a little bit of rain. Without getting into the debate of the overall budget, some of what Mr. Grannon had said initially about last year, I have to echo, because I did vote for the budget on final passage after it came back from County Executive Shu and the County Council, and it addressed many of the needs that we had last year relative to health care and compensation. But the initial budget, I did vote with Mr. Grannon against it, because I felt as though the board was not able to make what I believed, and again, I never question anyone's motive, that's very improper, but what I felt to be a cut to show that we were making sacrifices. And I've got 2 amendments tonight that I will make, and both are near and dear to me. The first one impacts workforce development. So first, just to read the motion, I move to reduce the number of additional internship teacher positions in the superintendent's recommended operating budget from 2 to 0, with a net impact of minus negative $156,340.
Do I have a second?
Second.
This one impacts workforce development, which is where I've been working for the last year. And I think these are critical positions that are needed. Internship teachers provide hands-on experience for students to make them not just college ready, as we spend a lot of time discussing, but also career ready. And certainly both are integral to the success of education. But given some of the amendments that are yet to come, the amendments that have already passed here, I felt it appropriate to make an amendment in an area that impacts me personally, because it's near and dear to my heart. So that's the reason for this amendment.
Ms. Corbelak.
I actually had a question for Dr. Arlotto.
We'll hold on.
Okay.
Until he comes back. Mr. Reinhardt.
Thank you, Madam President. Just for clarification for everyone playing along at home, is this eliminating existing positions?
No, it is not. Correct, Mr. Sheknovich?
For the record, that is correct. The existing allocation of internship teachers would remain as is. It simply would not increase by 2.
Ms. Sasso.
Yes. I like the presentation by Mr. Gilligan, where he states it's the impact on the workforce development. They are critical positions. They're integral to success of education, but nevertheless, let's reduce them. To me, if it's needed, it is needed. We will ask for it, and basically we will let the county know what this school system needs. We cannot be graduating children or adults that basically do not know where they're going to go, because we cannot provide $156,000 for them.
Ms. Corbelak has a question for you.
This is about the internship teacher positions. Your request to add to, was that to address in any way the increased requirement to graduate students with CTE credentials over the next few years?
No. No, it's
Okay.
not directly related to that. This is really about, because we are, we've built our magnet programs and we've built our signature programs much around accessing, getting students to access internships. That internships many, many years ago were things that teachers had to manage themselves. They would go out and help a student find an internship and they would have to manage themselves. And it just is, with the number, we've had 40% of last year's seniors engaged in an internship. We'd like to get to 100%. What an internship teacher does is somebody that goes out and helps a student find an internship, makes those connections with local businesses, and then also has to check out to make sure we're not sending students into a place where people have been fingerprinted. It's an appropriate place to send a student. They check in with that student. They work on some of the soft skills in terms of building the resume, communicating, and they're the liaison between the school and the student and the internship itself. So that's the work that they're doing.
Okay, thanks. I just want to make sure we weren't hurting the state mandate to increase
Yes, ma'am.
CTE. Okay.
Thank you.
Ms. Cole?
I just have a question. How many internship teachers are there currently?
Alex Shaknovich, I believe we have 5 currently.
I think the number is 10 or 11. 9 plus the coordinator. So there's 10 total under that umbrella, but 9 that are out in the field working with the schools. Thank you.
Are there any other board questions or comments? Is there any public comment? Oh, Ms. Sasso?
Dr. Arlotto mentioned that 40% of the seniors were engaged. What is that number?
I don't have a number off the top of my head. I certainly can get one for you.
Around 2,000?
2,000 students engaged in internships.
So we have 9 teachers for 2,000 students. And we are only asking for 2 more.
And keeping in mind, these are people that are they're moving around
Yeah,
a lot.
yeah,
While they're associated
Yes.
with a school and or a program, they've got a group of students, and they're in and out of that building. They're in and out of the local internships. They're in and out of the businesses, maintaining contact with the students and the business partners.
Thank you.
All right, any other comments? Okay. All those in favor? Oh, is there a comment? Okay.
Apologies for not putting my hand high enough. I guess I'm just failing to understand why we would decrease something when we have such, there's going to be more enrollment, right? Enrollment's expected just to increase and increase and increase. So, and this is just, I mean, respectfully, just a very small drop in the bucket. I don't understand how that would impact taxpayers all that much, and why we can't support something like this. Ms. Sasso?
Yes.
I understand your passion from the last one, and I'm just trying to get up to speed here. But to me, and I know that we're a net importer of teachers, but I still think that if we don't ask for it, we don't receive, and then we can also work on recruitment efforts and relationships there and bonuses or whatever it takes to get the teachers we need. So I do respect your opinion.
Okay, thank you. Any other comments? Okay. All those in favor of reducing the number of additional internship positions from 2 to 0? Okay. All those opposed? All right, and abstain. So the motion fails. 2, 5, 1. Is that correct? I'm missing 1. No, that's not 9. 1, 2, 3, 5. 3, 5, 1. I'm sorry. 3, 5, 1. Okay.
Who was the third vote?
Terry, myself, and you. Okay. Amendment number 2, Mr. Gilliland.
Thank you. If you like that one, you're going to love this one. So, before going into workforce development, I spent the last decade of my life leading teams around the world in 21st century learning initiatives, 21st century digital learning. And again, for me, this amendment is painful because it hits at something that's near and dear to my heart and near and dear to what I'll even be bold enough to say my area of expertise. The amendment reads, and I move to reduce the number of 21st century learning teacher specialist positions in the superintendent's recommended operating budget from 2 to 1, which would have a net impact of negative $76,070.
Are there any board comments? Mr. Grannon.
I just have a point of clarification because this came up with your last amendment, Mr. Gilliland. What you're really saying is reduce the number of additional. Right. So this is not cutting anyone who's currently here. It's reduce the number of additional FTEs from 2 to 1.
Ms. Sasso?
Yes, I have a question. Why are we reducing something when Mr. Steve Shu, our county executive, already said that our budget looked real nice, the one that Dr. Aloro had submitted? If it looked real nice, why are we getting rid of it? Just so that he can see that we are getting rid of something?
You want my honest answer?
Yes.
Because I want a teacher in a classroom. I want to reduce class sizes, and I want to focus on compensation, which is coming up in the next amendments. And I'm going to what you said earlier, and you know we love each other,
Go
so we
ahead.
can be
Yeah,
honest.
we do. Go ahead. Go on.
I think that is, for me, setting a priority here, as painful as it may be, so that it's not set by someone else somewhere else.
Ms. Korbelak.
For the benefit of those watching at home, could you tell us briefly what a 21st century learning teacher specialist does?
We have, will be no surprise to this board and our community that we are significantly increasing the amount of digital learning that's going on, right? The content that we're getting, we're buying, we're spending fewer millions of dollars on textbooks that we're holding in hand, and there's more happening on smart boards, there's more happening on laptops and devices in schools, and so with that, there has to be some training for teachers and some professional development for teachers on how to teach with that style. Many of our teachers have not been brought up with that style of learning, and so a 21st century learning specialist is somebody that is going to be a professional developer that's going to be working with teachers to implement the new digital curriculum that is really mounting in our curriculum each and every year, and we're writing curriculum to that. We're writing more e-curriculum. All of our elementary curriculum, for instance, that we're putting out, grades pre-K to 5, is in e-format. And so we have to do more professional learning with teachers to be able to implement that work.
Are there any other board questions or comments? Any public comment? Okay. All those in favor?
No,
oh, I'm sorry.
So, again, related to my last comment on the last amendment, I just don't understand if enrollment's increasing why we're taking away positions. This is a very small drop in the bucket compared to a more than $1 billion budget. And for us to succeed both at home and abroad, those kids need to be as up on technology as possible because we lag behind globally on stuff like this, especially in Western Europe and Germany, et cetera. So I just don't understand why we would take away something that's so crucial to keeping our kids on the cutting edge of technology.
Are there any other comments? Okay, all those in favor of reducing the number of 21st century learning teacher specialist positions from 2 to 1? All those opposed? And 1 abstention, so that was 4 4 1, so the motion fails because there was not a quorum. One. So wait, so we're missing, no, the 4 4 1. That's 9. Ms. Nally, Mr. Gilliland, myself, and Mr. Grannon. Okay. Amendment number 3, Mrs. Korbelak.
I'd like to increase the cost of living adjustment for all employees in the superintendent's recommended operating budget by 1%, bringing the COLA for all employees to 2%. This would increase the superintendent's recommended operating budget by $6,504,150.
Okay, it's been seconded. Ms. Corlett.
Although this placeholder is for all employees, I wanted to speak to my motion specifically regarding our teachers tonight. Anne Arundel County's starting teacher's salary for a bachelor's degree candidate is currently $445,891. This is the lowest starting salary in the Baltimore-Washington corridor. Montgomery County is paying their brand new bachelor's degree teachers $49,013. Baltimore City is $48,430. PG is $47,781. Howard's $47,588. And Baltimore County is $46,974. Even if every single one of those counties did not request a COLA this year, our 1% cost of living would still keep us in last place for the corridor. Even a 2% COLA only ties us with Baltimore County for 5th place, but it's moving us in the right direction. How do we expect to hire the best and the brightest teachers if our pay is in 6th place out of 6? Are our benefits more generous? Perhaps. But is a 22-year-old concerned about the cost of health insurance when they could remain on their parents' policy for 4 more years? I think not. Let's face it. We pay teachers across this nation a wage that assumes a teacher's salary is just supplementing their spouse or partner's income. They certainly can't support a traditional family of 4 on their salary alone. The United Way's Alice report shows that anyone trying to support a family of 4 and simply survive in Anne Arundel County has to earn at least $71,820. It's going to take a lot of steps and a lot of COLAs over many years before an entry-level teacher in Anne Arundel County will earn a survival salary. So let's do what we can this year, subject to negotiation, to increase our salary scales.
Ms. Sasso.
I only want to comment hallelujah.
Are there any other board comments? Is there any public comment?
I feel like I should just stand at the mic tonight. I think this is a great step. I think that our teachers, it's gross how little they're paid in this district, especially relative to neighboring districts. And I also believe that the secretaries and assistants have been ignored far too long, and they do not make a living wage either. And although this is a nice start, those salaries for teachers, secretaries, assistants, all those wonderful people who have the awesome job of running our schools and teaching our kids every day should be paid at least the middle of what the surrounding districts are paying their teachers, their secretaries, and their assistants. So I applaud this first step, but I wish I really think it needs to be way higher. Thank you.
I just wanted to second the appreciation and also the sense that it's just the beginning. I hope we can pick a framework of making it that we ask for what we believe we need. And I think if we could be consistent about that, that would be powerful. I don't think we have to show our ability to prioritize among things that we believe are essential. You don't prioritize among food or water. You ask for the things you believe are essential. So I think that there's other ways to demonstrate our capacity to be able to prioritize than trying not to ask for things we believe are integral and important. So thank you.
On behalf of Annapolis High, where we have a number of very sharp young teachers who have lost salary over the past 5 years by a reduction in number of teaching days, I want to tell you that this difference between a 1% COLA and a 2% COLA is meaningful. It's meaningful to them for the extra 1,000 or whatever to get back in salary what they have lost. Many of you attended the award ceremony for the Milken Foundation prize for our award-winning calculus and algebra teacher. In her 5th year of teaching at Annapolis High, she was recruited from Pennsylvania. She teaches calculus to teenagers. Again, like I've said before, none of us in this room can do that. None of us, except if Ms. Chittum was here. But in her 5th year, she's making $55,000 a year in her 5th year, and only through the award of $25,000 is she able to contemplate buying a house and staying in our district. So please do everything you can to increase the teacher pay so that we can retain these high-quality teachers that our students need. Thank you.
Mr. Reinhardt.
Thank you, Madam President. So what it's important for the public to know is that the COLA affects all folks regardless of step, and just as we're talking about helping to recruit our young teachers and bring them here to the county, we also have our more seasoned staff that, based on their bargaining unit, has a maximum step. So what this COLA allows is for those senior members of our staff to continue to see an increase in wage, which has a greater impact just beyond that year's salary, but also affects their longer-term retirement, because that is a accumulation of the last 3 years of their teaching here in the state. So this is not only good for our young folks or in the middle folks, but also our senior folks too. Hopefully we can keep them for a few more years.
Any other comments? Okay. All those in favor of increasing the cost of living adjustments for all employees in the superintendent's operating budget by 1%, bringing the COLA for all employees to 2%. Opposed? Okay, 711. Amendment number 4, Mr. Reinhardt.
If there's one group of people that I respect more than anyone, it's those people behind the scenes, the folks you never have to hear about, and those are our preventative maintenance staff. I was quite surprised when going through the budget to find that we had 0 increased positions for our preventative maintenance team. Yet we're continuing to add classroom space, we're continuing to add new buildings to the district, so it was important to add those preventative maintenance technicians to our request to the county. So I move to increase the number of additional preventative maintenance technician positions in the superintendent's recommended operating budget from 0 to 2. That'll have a net budgetary impact of an increase of $173,174.
Second.
Thanks. And for the record, I was a calculus teacher.
So Mr. Reinhardt and Dr. Kubik both teach us calculus here tonight. So are there any board comments or questions or comments on this amendment? Is there any public comment? Oh, Ms. Sasso.
One of the things that I would like to say is that if you look at all of the amendments and what is asked for, you have to remember that what this board has done, and for those that have voted yes, we are looking at what the needs are. And we can probably, come back with figures from everybody. We can just show you the figures back what we are asking for. We are not doing pie in the sky and dreaming about, having all of these extra things. So basically, I think we're just right on target in what is being asked. Dr. Arlotto was being very conservative.
All right. All those in favor of increasing the number of additional preventative maintenance technician positions from 0 to 2? Opposed? Okay. 711.
Thank you. The amendment I'm presenting today is to increase the number of additional custodian positions in the superintendent's recommended operating budget from 0 to 2. That has a net budgetary impact of $101,400. In July of 2008, ACPS had 12,367,482 square feet of permanent building space under the roof. As of July 2017, ACPS now has 13,700,996 square feet of space. In July 2008, AACPS, oh, I'm sorry, over those 10 years, or 9 years, we only had a net increase of one custodial position. The reason I want to add one is because I believe our custodial staff is doing a great job, but I do not want to stretch them out too thin. And I think clean schools is what everybody would like to see.
Mr. Reinhardt.
Thank you, Madam President. Thus far, we've had an increase in the superintendent's budget of approximately $10 million. If I'm doing my math right, of course I'm doing my math right. So we have about $10 million. I don't know. As long as there's no natural law, we'll be all right. So it was a math joke. So with $10 million, just with some back of the envelope calculations, with about 500,000 residents here in the county, what we're asking for folks is a nickel a day. That's it. It's a nickel a day to give our students the wraparound services they need, lower class sizes, reward all of our fabulous staff here in the county, 5 cents a day. And with the change in the tax structure in this county, imagine what we could do. Now, I was at a business event. Thank you. I was at a business roundtable event and had the privilege of hearing the county executive speak, where he did mention that we do have a expected surplus this year. Let's put that surplus to use tonight.
Are there any of Mr. Grannon?
Comments that he wasn't taking them into account when he said tonight that the superintendent's request was aggressive and the county would do everything it could to fund it, but please don't make any additional amendments to increase that. You don't think he was taking that into account when he said that?
I don't take the liberty of inferring or guessing what the county executive meant when he said that there was an expected surplus this year.
Are there any other comments on this amendment? Any public comment? Okay, all those in favor of increasing the number of additional custodian positions from 0 to 2? Opposed? And abstained. 7-1-1. Are there any other board additions or subtractions, amendments to the budget? Okay, Mr. Gillen. Right, he's supposed to have his notes in front of him.
Thank you, Madam President. I move to postpone consideration after all other agenda items tonight.
Okay, all those in favor to postpone consideration of the budget so that the budget team can go and add the numbers up, and we will vote after the other agenda items are complete. Ugh, getting tongue-tied. All those in favor? Opposed? Abstain? Okay. So 8-1. All right. We will now move on to the next item while the budget gurus get to work. All right. Oh, now we need to go to capital budget. Okay. Item 4.02 is an action item, the superintendent's recommended fiscal year 2019 capital budget and 6-year plan. Dr. Arlotto, your recommendation.
Yes, ma'am. I recommend for approval by the board a capital budget and 6-year plan totaling $216,025,000.
So moved.
Second. Okay. Are there any questions or comments on that? Mr. Shaknovich, is there any additional, any updates on the capital budget?
No, for the record, the capital budget that's before you today is consistent with the documents you've seen from September to December to today. So there have been no alterations to this capital budget, and it matches the one that was submitted to the state of Maryland in October.
Are there any board questions or comments on the capital budget? Is there any public comment? Okay. All those in favor of adopting the superintendent's recommended fiscal year 2019 capital budget and 6-year plan? Okay. So motion passes 9-0. All right. Okay, do I have a motion to bundle items 5.01 through 5.07?
Second.
Okay, all those in favor? Okay. This is an information to action item. Do I have a motion to move this from information to action?
So move.
Second.
Okay, all those in favor? Okay. Dr. Arlotto, your recommendation.
Yes, ma'am. I recommend board approval of the contracts listed on tonight's agenda as 5.01 through 5.07.
So move.
Okay. Are there any board questions or comments regarding items 5.01 through 5.07? Is there any public comment? Okay. All those in favor? Mr. Butcher, did you vote? Oh, okay, just making sure. All right, motion passes 9-0. Item 6.01 is administrative personnel appointments. This is an action item. Dr. Arlotto, your recommendation.
Yes, ma'am. I recommend that the personnel listed on the attached sheet be promoted and/or appointed.
So move.
Second.
Are there any board questions or comments? Okay, Mr. Reinhardt.
Thank you, Madam President. I had the privilege of meeting Mr. Edwards several years ago where he served as the PBIS chair at Lindale Middle School. He's a friendly face in the building who's done an excellent job at Arundel Middle, and I'm excited to see him promoted as to assistant principal at Lindale Middle. He's going to do a fabulous job. Congratulations, Mr. Edwards.
Any other comments? Okay. All those in favor? All those in favor? Motion passes 9-0. Okay. Item 6.02 is an information item regarding policy, the second reading of policy GE lactation accommodations. Ms. Ortiz.
Good evening. For the record, Jeanette Ortiz, Legislative and Policy Counsel, and I have with me Jessica Kutches, our Executive Director of Human Resources. And so policy GE, lactation accommodations, is up for second reading, and we did not receive any public comments.
Are there any board questions or comments on this policy? Any public comment? Okay, and this will come back to us for third reading next meeting?
Yes, correct.
All right.
Thank you.
Item 6.03 is policy IJ, test administration and data reporting. This is also a second reading. Ms. Ortiz.
Yes, I have with me Jason Dykstra, Executive Director of Instructional Data, on policy IJ, test administration and data reporting. We did not receive any public comments on this policy during the 30-day public comment period.
Are there any board questions or comments on this policy? Okay, this is second reading, and it will come back to us for third reading at the next meeting, correct?
Yes, correct.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Item 6.04 is an information to action item, Meade High School educational specification. Do I have a motion to move this from information to action? So moved. Second. All those in favor? Okay. Dr. Arlotto, your recommendation.
Yes, ma'am. I recommend approve the Meade High School educational specification.
Do I have a second? Second. All right.
And would the team introduce themselves, please?
Yes.
Lisa Seaman Crawford, Director of Facilities.
I'm Mary Patz, Lead Architect, Office of Design at Facilities.
Kyle Ruff, Supervisor of Planning, Design, and Construction.
Do we have a presentation?
It's a little brief history of Meade High School. In 2010, the Department of Defense Office of Economic Adjustment surveyed all the schools located on military installations worldwide. Site visits were conducted to review physical and programmatic conditions for all AACPS schools located on Fort Meade. In March 2011, an assessment report for Anne Arundel County Public Schools facilities was issued. Meade High School scored the lowest of all of our schools on Fort Meade and was placed number 30 on the DoD priority list. In August of 2015, Dr. Arlotto and Alex Sheknovich attended a meeting to review the DoD program, which included information on federal funding for renovation additions or replacement of schools in the top 33 spots on the DoD priority list, with the caveat that in order to receive funding, the local agency is required to provide a 20% match. In December 2015, we submitted a proposal to the DoD Office of Economic Adjustment that indicated our funding match had already been met by work already completed through the projects that specifically addressed the issues in the assessment report. These projects included the open space enclosure, the HVAC replacement, the 12 classroom addition, and stadium upgrades. At that time, the DoD indicated the projects above Meade High School on the priority list were experiencing cost increases, and that they didn't know how this would affect funding of our project. In April of 2016, a federal team visited Meade High School to discuss the project with AACPS staff and design team. Based on that meeting and subsequent conversations, an updated project proposal was submitted. April of 2017, we met with the garrison commander and David Jones from DoD, and they informed us that funding for design only was available at this time. Fast forward to now. In January of 2018, we received an invitation to submit a draft application for design funds based on our preliminary report. The good news is the draft application was uploaded February 2nd. As a requirement of the design process before you is a standard high school education specifications edited for a renovation addition project for Meade High School in preparation for the DoD's approval of the design funds to begin this project. So we'll be happy to answer any questions. Yeah.
So to simplify, does this really mean we're finally going to get this money and be able to do it?
I don't know. It's been a long 8 years.
I know. I know. We've been waiting for this, and
we're inching closer. So hopefully we should hear in the next month or so. But
it would be fabulous. And this would not be replacing Meade High School. This would be
a revitalization.
Revitalization of the building. That would be fabulous and much needed and very welcome. So
we're ready to go as soon as they give us
money. As soon as they give us the go-ahead. Well, let's hope that the government, you know, because it moves so quickly, that they will move quickly on this. So, Ms. Nally.
Well, I feel like this project has been ongoing as long as I've been on the board. I mean, not quite. I mean, but close. I mean, when I first heard about it, I was so excited, and then I followed the fact that we were able to use what we had already done as instead of having a match fund. Oh, I cheered then. That's been a few years ago. So each time, so now I'm cheering again. Now I go off the board next December 2nd. I'd like to see this thing done.
Me too.
Or at least underway.
Yeah.
So I'm hoping. Thank you.
Are there any other board questions or comments? So, all those, oh, yes.
When I looked at this plan and I looked at where that Magna-Lov train's going through, that is very close to this school. And it is also going through a number of the housing areas that are feeder to this school. So I know we're just talking about improvement and stuff, but I wanted to make the board aware that we need to take a look at that because it's going right pretty darn close to that building.
Just, Ms. Calhoun, for your information,
the two routes that they picked.
The board has took official position opposing the Maglev.
Yeah, I read that. When I saw this, I want to make sure you guys knew.
Yeah. Ms. Sasso.
I thought that I received a mail from the Magnet people that says Odenton and BOE routes are off. They're completely off.
But there's others that still go through that area. Yes.
Yeah.
So.
Thank you all.
Yes, thank you very much.
Great.
Item 6.05 is items of legislation. This is an information to action item. Do I have a motion to move this from information to action? All those in favor? Okay. Ms. Ortiz.
Good evening. For the record, again, Jeanette Ortiz, Legislative and Policy Counsel. I have technically two bills. It's the same bill. They're cross files. House Bill 677 and Senate Bill 477 before you for a vote. And essentially, these are emergency bills that would require a custodian of records to deny under the Maryland Public Information Act any request for the inspection of a distribution list or a request to be added to a distribution list if that list identifies a physical or email address or a telephone number of an individual that is being used by the entity that has the distribution list. So essentially, these bills would help address some privacy concerns regarding ambiguity in our current Maryland Public Information Act. And so we are asking for you to support it because we have had at least one court in the state of Maryland that has held that a public distribution list, so for example, if we send an email out to parents regarding an activity at a school and you have some third party, perhaps commercial entity that requests for us to share these personal email addresses, there's been at least one court in the state of Maryland that has held that that information, that personal information, would have to be shared. These emergency bills would prohibit that. And so we are requesting for the board to support this legislation because it doesn't fall under our legislative program. However, we feel that that personal information should be maintained private.
Ms. Korbelak.
Just curious if this would address the gentleman who was here earlier about the HVPA notice going to the Department of Health.
So I caught a little bit of that. I'm not familiar with that situation regarding the Department of Health. I caught a little bit of that, so I'm not certain, but certainly I can look into it if I gather additional information regarding what he was referring to.
Thanks.
Are there any other questions or comments on this piece of legislation? Any public comment? All right, all those in favor of supporting this bill? Okay, motion passes.
Okay, and then the remaining bills are no position bills or items that fall under our legislative program.
Okay. Are there any board questions or comments about any of the other bills in our packet this time? Any public comment? All right. Thank you, Ms. Ortiz.
Thank you.
Mr. Grannon.
Well, this may obviate my comment. Sorry. Ready?
So, do you have a question?
No, as long as they're ready, I'm good.
Okay. Well, the item 7.01 is a review item, the monthly financial status report. Any questions or comments regarding the monthly financial report? Is there any public comment? All right. That item is reviewed. And now
your motion, this was the effect of your motion that passed. So we're ready.
All right, we will return to item 4.01, the operating budget. Mr. Shagnovich.
We've taken into account the various amendments that have passed tonight and added them up together. The net effect is that the various amendments increase the FTE request by 51.8 positions from the previous 238.7 FTEs to a new number of 290.5 FTEs. The net effect of the amendments that passed this evening added an additional $10,899,724 to the original request. Our overall request now is valued as a $55,192,012 increase, bringing our final request that the superintendent has before you for a operating budget that adds up to $1,208,969,212, and I will repeat that: $1,208,969,212, which is a year-over-year percentage increase of 4.78. I'll be happy to review those one more time if anybody needs clarity.
Madam President, at this time I move that the Board of Education pass the operating budget totaling $1,208,969,212.
Ms. Sasso.
I just have a question. That 4.78 increase, how does it compare to the cost of living increase or whatever it is? Do you have any idea?
So the most recent CPI numbers, we're running at about 2.4% or so, the low twos, which is an improvement. They were running in the mid to high ones over the most recent 2-year period. So we're seeing some pricing pressure built into the marketplace now.
Question for you, just if you know, last year, was our increase compatible with the CPI in our budget?
Yes, it was.
Mr. Gilliland.
Thank you, Madam President. I just want to use my time, and I know that clock is wrong. The hour is getting late, and I just wanted to say, as my closing comments, thank you to you, Mr. Shaknovich, Mr. Stansky, for all of your work, certainly for the staff that was providing the inputs into the budget, and Dr. Arlotto as well. But I also want to thank the board. I think this was the first year, at least, this is my third budget now, but this was the first year that I think collaboratively we had all of the amendments before the budget committee. We were able to prepare with staff, to have a visual in advance of what the amendments were and the net increase, or in my case, the 2 decreases for the amendments. But I also want to just say, too, that I thought this year's budget workshop was awesome. And I don't want to compare year over year, but I think we just keep getting better at doing that. And for me, this year's workshop was probably the most informative and the most helpful as a board member. So just above all, thank you to everybody.
Any other board comments? I just want to say, Mr. Busher.
I'll wait. This was a very interesting meeting for me. Got an opportunity to hear a lot of comments. I was sworn in this past Friday, and I've gone over the budget, the recommendations as much as I could, and you heard a very interesting debate in terms of philosophy about what type of message this board should try to send. The thing that troubles me is that it sounds like year after year there's a recommendation that is sent, and essentially there's something else that comes back which is much less, and we have to try to figure out how to do more with less. And so I don't think anybody's wrong. I abstained from the amendments, whether they were going to increase or decrease, because I really think we had to figure out a different way to try to handle this. Whether it's teachers or kids or custodians, in general, the system is kind of messed up right now. So I think the real work is going to probably come June once we find out how much money we actually have to work with. But I hope we can figure out some type of way to move past this, because what we've heard from many of the people that have been here, whether they're teachers or kids or otherwise, was that they need more than what even some of the amendments that were put out there. And so I just don't think we're quite getting where we need to go. And if it's going to get cut, I'm not saying what's the point, because clearly there's a message that's going to be put out there, but we have to figure something else out. So that's my 2 cents.
Mr. Grannon.
I just want to say that I welcome Mr. Butcher's very thoughtful observations as a new member, and maybe next year, we'll see what happens this year, but maybe next year we could be in a position where this board is truly the decider of the budget, and then the county council ends up rubber stamping what we decide, rather than us doing that when they send a budget back to us. I would like to see that.
Ms. Sasso.
What I was thinking about is, it is our financial, legislative, and executive responsibility as a board to look at what the Board of Education needs for its students, its teachers, its administration. And I think that, yes, we basically have to put up with what the county tell us. But looking at what we have done tonight and what we have asked, what we now need to do is to recruit the public to go with us to those county hearings and just make sure that the politicians hear what is necessary in this county. So it's not only sitting here, now we just have to make sure that we as the board go there and advocate for our children and bring also the community behind us to advocate like they were doing last night.
Mr. Reinhardt.
I think I'm well established now that I like back of the envelope calculations. So if we look at the overall value of this year's budget, and we look at every single citizen here in Anne Arundel County, we're talking $6 a day. $6 a day. I sound like those old commercials in the 80s, for pennies a day. So for $6 a day, we're funding our county schools. For 5 cents more per day, we could give step increases. For 10 cents more, we could give 2 steps. For 15 cents more, we could add those hundreds of FTEs that we need. We're talking pennies a day for each citizen here. And as Mr. Butcher said, and Mr. Granite said, what is it going to take to change our tax structure, to change our funding formula and our funding processes? I don't think any citizen here in our county is going to disagree with spending 5 cents more to improve the lives of our children. 5 cents a day. Just think about it.
I believe our role as a school board is that we are to advocate for the needs of the school system and truly put out there what's, even if we are told that there won't be enough to fund what we ask for, our position is that we need to make the case and we need to put it out to the public so that they can make the case, so that everyone truly knows what the real needs of the school system are. I think budgets and checkbooks are moral documents, and you look at them and you see what a person and a community values. We are the 3rd wealthiest county in Maryland, yet our county income tax rate is 3rd lowest in the state. If we were to tax at the maximum county income tax rate of 3.2% like Howard, Montgomery, and Prince George's County do, our county revenue would increase by over $126 million a year. That increase could easily fund the entire school budget, plus additional amendments that we could make, as well as the fire, police, and other public safety needs. And the cost per resident, I did my back of the envelope, it would be 66 cents per day in additional income tax, and that's all. Most people spend more than that at the vending machine each day. I feel fairly certain that if you asked parents if they were willing to spend 66 cents per day to have their child's class have less than 40 students, they would say yes. I feel fairly certain that if you asked a retiree if they were willing to spend 66 66 cents a day to have increased fire and police presence, they would say yes. For my family of 7, it would be $4.62 a day, about the cost of my Starbucks hot chocolate. And I'd gladly give up my hot chocolate so that a troubled child would have more access to a guidance counselor, or so that the teachers who are expected to put their lives on the line for our children can receive a raise. So for pennies a day, we can have budgets that better reflect what I believe are the real values we want to project. And I think this budget begins to show that way. Mr. Grannon.
I would just say that obviously we had an election in the county, and I think it's pretty clear that a majority of the residents don't feel in support of what you're saying. And the point that you're making is a political point, and it sounds like you should run for county executive or for county council so that you can advocate for all these tax increases. That's not our job to do that. It's our job to work within the fiscal restraints that exist. And you know, we'll see what happens with this election, but I don't suspect that this election is going to be in support of what you're saying either.
We'll see. So are there any other board questions or comments or public comment? No public comment. I'm sorry, no public comment. There's no public comment on the final vote. So all those in favor of the newly amended fiscal year 2019 operating budget? All those opposed? Abstain? 7-1-1. Motion budget passes. That is the end of our meeting. Thank you very much. We are adjourned.
Motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn. All those in favor?